We're live.
Hi, here we are.
Hi, and welcome to the Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 Littleton Board of Health virtual Zoom meeting. We'll start off with the Zoom rules. Town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, an unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. These concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by Town Council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to the board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring but is not moderated or followed by the chair. All participants and listeners may not be aware of the comments being made because some meeting participants join by phone and do not see these conversations. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during the public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so that their microphones are muted. If you call in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone so that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises will not interfere with the meeting. If you choose to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you are called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphones back to mute. So Mike's here. Gino, anybody know if Gino's coming tonight?
I saw him yesterday and he said he would be here. I'm not seeing Kirk.
I don't think it's Kirk today. I think it was Kevin. We got some revised plans today and it was from Kevin.
I saw that.
Not you, Kevin.
No, I know, Kevin. Kevin Ritchie.
So there's a person named Nancy Ritchie. I'm assuming you would like to.
Oh, that's probably Kevin.
Person.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's raising his hand.
Okay, now we can control our mute.
Yes.
Okay. You're off.
You can turn your camera on now as well.
Yep. I'm just gonna Yep. You want him to share your screen?
Oh, can I just make one more announcement? We're talking right now, the Board of Health has an agenda. We have 4 agenda items that we will be discussing as a board. Please, unless you have questions or comments regarding the certain agenda items, do not raise your hands. If there'll be time at the end of each discussion for public comment, and there'll be time for public comments on different matters and administrative matters at the end of our discussion of our agenda items. So, okay. What's that, Kevin?
I think so. Can you see my screen? Can you see the plan I have on the screen?
I can.
Okay. So I did send in a revised plan this afternoon. It's identical to the one that we submitted earlier, with the exception of we've added 2 dimensions. We are filing with the Conservation Commission for this site as well. So we did add a dimension from there's a drain with a little wetland associated on Dahlia Drive. So I've added the dimension from the wetland to the hay bales and then the wetland to the foundation. As far as the septic system and all that part, that's all remained the same. So we've got 3 Dahlia Drive. There's an existing 2-bedroom home here. It's had a failed Title V inspection. We are proposing a new septic system, a new Presby, new 2-compartment, 1,500-gallon septic tank with a pump chamber, lifting it up to the leach field comprised of the Presby. We did the soil testing in August with the hopes of being able to run a percolation test, but there was still, the soil was still too damp to actually be able to run the perk test. So we are requesting to use the sieve analysis in place of the perk test. And we are using the Presby, which is approved for the 2-foot groundwater offset, or the 2-foot reduction in the groundwater offset. And so I'm here to ask for the approval from the board to use the Presby with the 2-foot reduction in the offset to groundwater.
Okay, so board members, Jim's not here tonight, so does somebody want to read his meeting notes at all for 3 Dahlia? I have them in front of me if you guys don't want to read it, or if you don't have it. Or, well, actually, why don't you ask questions first? Any questions for Kevin?
I don't have any questions.
What did the sieve come back at, Kevin?
The sieve came back as a sandy loam.
So that's like a
Class 2 soil,
30.
30 minutes an inch, yes.
And they're tearing this house down?
They will tear the house down and put up another 2-bedroom, so they cannot increase the flow here. It's 2 now, and it'll be stuck at 2.
Top of foundation still going to be at the 102, or?
So the top of foundation is 102. Yeah, I think the existing house is basically sitting on the ground.
Okay.
We
So
will
probably raise it up a little bit.
We will raise it up a bit. Obviously, it's got some fill associated with it to get it up out of the groundwater. The existing system's in the groundwater, but the new system will be elevated.
And what's the groundwater? What'd you call that at?
Yeah, the groundwater, we had it at 42, 48, and 48 inches.
That's actually good.
It's very good. There was some fill. This was probably the low point at one point.
Right.
It had been filled in. But by the time we get down to the natural soil, it was still too damp.
Yeah, and you're out of the wetland buffer.
Yes, we're completely outside, so that we've got this drain to this little wetland down here across the street, and we've got the 100-foot buffer. The septic system and the tanks are completely outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah, good job.
Any other questions? Mike Zeldin, do you have any questions at all? Mike still here?
He doesn't have any questions.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I'll read Jim's notes on 3 Dahlia Drive. The sewage disposal system for the site will be considered in failure due to the estimated seasonal high water table and the depth of the existing leach field. Soil testing was conducted in areas found for the installation of replacement system. Because the lot was filled and perk tests must be conducted in the naturally occurring soil, the applicant is unable to conduct a perk test due to the water table. The applicant is requesting a local upgrade approval to use sieve analysis for the determination of perk rate. The water table in the site is high, 30 inches below grade. In an effort to keep the fill from getting within 10 feet of the lot line, the applicant is requesting a reduction of the offset from the leach area to the water table, 4 feet required, 2 feet requested with the use of a Presby system. The site is served by town water. The system will be 100 feet from wetlands. The groundwater offset reduction will allow the lot grading to avoid shedding surfaces, water onto the abutters. I don't have a problem with this request. My favorite question, any abutters in the audience at all?
This was an atypical one. We did not have to notify the abutters. We were able to keep the fill 10 feet off the lot lines.
Okay.
I just have one question. Kevin, that concrete wall on the right, do you feel like that's just an old conventional system and that's why they needed that wall?
Yes.
Is that what happened? Okay.
That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Is that on this property?
No,
Or is that on?
No, probably number one. Is it?
Yeah, that's on the neighboring property. Probably it's either number one or it's Butts.
Goldsmith or something.
Goldsmith address.
Okay. All right, does anybody want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to
To
approve.
allow the,
Make a motion to approve the plan as presented.
I'll second.
all right. So we'll do a roll call. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Louise Nichols,
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Zeldin, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. All set.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kevin.
Nice night.
You too. The next agenda item, well, let's see what time it is. We're a little early. We've got 4 minutes to wait for 6 Vint Lane request for deed restriction. Can we do anything? Can we do minutes now, Janet, or?
Yes, you can do the minutes.
In 3 minutes?
Sure.
All right, so we're,
Make a motion. Want me to make a motion?
yep.
I make a motion to approve the minutes dated 9/23.
I'll second that.
All right, and we'll do a roll call. Kevin Baker,
Kevin Baker, yes.
Louise Nichols,
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Zeldin, yes.
and Lisa Flanagan, yes. So those minutes are approved. Thank you. That was too fast.
A question for Janet. Janet, the email that was forwarded about the, was there an attachment on the one you just had sent at 6:38
Yeah, about the masks.
at Archer's? Yeah, I just didn't see an attachment.
To be honest, I saw that right before the meeting, so I didn't even open it up. So I'll take a peek and I'll send it back. If there is if there's supposed to be an attachment, I'll go back and see if I can figure it out. Jim, that was Jim forwarding saying he's handling it. So there may have been the original, may have had an attachment.
Is this about Archer's Mobile employees not wearing masks? Is that the one you guys are talking about? Okay.
Yes.
Didn't see any context. Just
It's on, because it's on Facebook, it looks like, Kevin.
MySpace, Facebook.
It says regarding a Facebook Littleton women's discussing complaint about the lack of mask adherence at a Littleton business. So I don't think there was a letter. I think somebody just saw it on Facebook and wanted
To go play.
us to know about it.
Are Facebook communications considered to be verified and valid?
Yeah, what's the
It's
legal?
Facebook, you got to believe it, right?
If it's on Facebook, it's gotta be true, Mike.
Are you kidding? Okay. I was asking the question, I trust people who live in Littleton. It's just that, well, who knows where it came from?
If
It's
you
a good question.
didn't wish somebody happy birthday on Facebook, it never happened.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, anyway.
I think Jim just views it the same as our anonymous calls on the telephone saying that there's, a situation. He goes out and questions and just tries to educate people and make sure it's not too big an issue.
All right, so now it's 7:15. We can start discussing the public hearing about 6 Vint Lane. Anybody, is Mr. Rodriguez on the meeting at all?
Juan?
Oh, I think I did the wrong person.
He's got his hand up there, yeah.
Mr. Rodriguez, you have to unmute yourself. Thanks.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Me?
He hasn't unmuted himself.
I can't hear you.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, there's a bit of a delay though.
The low.
Me?
We can hear you, but very briefly. If you could speak up, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Okay, can I expose my case?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, do I need to share diagrams or floor plans?
Yes, please.
How can I share?
Bottom middle, it's called share screen.
Okay, share.
As long as you have the file already open, you should be able to select it.
Button is not.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, my name is Juan. I'm here with my wife, Angela. So we live in 6 Bean Lane, Cooper Farm. We want to finish our basement, and we wanted to build a wall, taking advantage of the lally columns that are in the middle of the basement. We wanted to have like two different areas. And then when the contractor that we hired, he said that there was a problem that was not approved by the Board of Health. And that's why we are exposing our case here, because we understand we are not allowed to have more than 2 areas here, or more than 1 area here, only 1. And we are in the need of having two to make better use of the space. And basically, we wanted to have a studio here. And now my wife and I are working from home, and we are really needing this space to use as a studio. And then the other area to have like an area for entertainment for our daughter.
Yeah, and also we won't have any doors between the spaces, if that makes any difference. But we really want to take advantage of the space and have a studio, so we both can have our home offices independently.
So it looks like, is the storage area already a room, or would you be
No,
building
that
that also?
Yeah, correct. This will be unfinished. This storage area will be unfinished. The only area that we are going to finish is the white area.
Right, but
Is that what?
are you building that storage area, or is it already built?
It's already built.
That's
Yeah,
already
here is where the furnace is, the water heater, and the electric panel.
So there's already a door there and a wall there that encloses that?
No.
Oh no.
No. So that would be another room that you'd be building.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to separate the unfinished area with the finished area.
Is the bathroom already there too?
No, this also is going to be built, the half bathroom.
How many rooms in the house right now, Mr. Rodriguez?
Of this, so this is the first floor. So we have the kitchen, the family room, the dining room with the living room, and the foyer. And then in the second room, we have a 3-bedroom and 1 office.
And so, and you're proposing 2 rooms in the basement, it looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
Storage
I mean,
a storage room and the playroom studio that has a wall but no door.
Correct.
So, or is that 3 rooms, guys, because there's the bathroom in it too.
Bathrooms don't count.
Bathrooms don't count, so that would be 2 more, so. We're saying 9?
And you have a 4-bedroom septic right now. Rated.
No, this is Cooper Farm, so they have a shared system.
And what is their agreement? How much flow are they allowed?
3 bedrooms.
Excuse me, I believe that Jim has commented on this.
Yep, no, we're just asking some questions.
Sure.
There's nothing that says what kind of septic system it has or how many.
No, it does in the first paragraph of how the development is set up. Do you want me to read Jim's comments?
Sure,
or?
yeah.
Okay, so this house is part of the Cooper Farm development, and there are 23 single-family houses and 16 condo units. Each unit is assigned a flow. Houses are 3-bedroom, condos 2-bedroom over 55 units. The development is served by a shared septic system designed to handle the maximum flow allowed by Title V. Any additional design or actual flow would require the development to install a wastewater treatment plant. In an effort to minimize the potential for additional flow, (design or actual), this office has advised homeowners to limit the additional finished space, generally basements, to 1 additional living space. The addition of 1 finished space is allowed by your policy with a deed restriction. I don't doubt the applicant will use the proposed space for what they prescribe. The board can't control how the space will be used by future owners, and allowing multiple space may set a precedent for other homeowners' requests. I would recommend limiting the finished space to 1 additional room/space.
Mr. Rodriguez, is this a condo or is this a freestanding home?
I understand a freestanding single family home.
Okay, and is it the 55 and over? Or is that just,
No.
okay, so
55.
that, Louise, the condos, 2 bedrooms over 55 units, that means the number of units, do you think?
I thought it was age. Isn't it age?
Well, Jim's notes that say parentheses on the second line, condos, well, I guess this is a freestanding home, so this is a 3-bedroom home.
Well, it's not. They have 4 bedrooms.
So 3 bedrooms and one office, 1 studio. But what is
It's still counted as a room, though.
Wink, wink office. Yeah. I mean, think by right, it's 330 gallons per day. That'd be a 3-bedroom system, and I kind of feel for you, Mr. Rodriguez. Like in this world where everybody needs a remote office, and somewhere to go and shut the door. It's really like, I don't doubt your intention here is to make this space, just livable for your kids to go and bounce off the walls during the wintertime when they can't go outside, and have a place for you folks to go and work and have peace and quiet. I'd be inclined to, given the current nature of the pandemic, to try and get something done for you here, if the other members in the chair would allow. But I think it's all about resale and having it be known that, when this property does transfer, that it's kind of all got to be taken out or let it be known. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on it.
So are we counting 9 rooms with the finished basement?
Yeah. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, rounded down is 4. They already only have, it seemed like they're already even overflow. Like, I don't even know how that happened, how this thing even got approved to begin with.
Right.
But it seems like they're in a situation now, and they bought into this, and they were sold a product that is a lovely, lovely home. But they should have the chance to utilize it to the maximum.
No one anticipated the pandemic, and this is a pretty rock solid restriction.
I know.
the flow. So I believe that Jim Griffey's point is well taken. The pandemic won't last forever, and we can't police these residences. It's not fair to the owners, to the sale process, to the new owners, whatever it would be. I mean, this is the history of the development of this particular this development was very, very clear about controlling and making sure that the, shall we say, the capacity of these systems did not have the potential to be, shall we say, exceeded. And
is there a workaround, Mike? Is there a way?
I don't see anything here except violating and basically bulldozing over something that a lot of other people have signed on to. And I think, very frankly, that, you know, from the looks of the space there, the wall isn't necessary. I mean, there may be other solutions that you could come up with to accomplish the same thing, but I don't think you need two separate. I'm not saying that you don't need it. I'm saying there's a way you can achieve your objective, Mr. Rodriguez, without necessarily putting up a wall and creating, putting yourself in a position where you're asking for something that has a cascading effect that, shall we say, goes against what everyone else, all your neighbors have bought into, and that we can't police and shouldn't have to.
And if we say yes to you and your neighbors find out, then that's going to create a problem.
Is there a temporary like air wall solution that might be able to be implemented that would be acceptable? I mean, I don't know what Jim's thoughts on that are. Something to divide the space yet be not a fixture and be able to be removed and taken out of the home.
I don't know if you put like an accordion.
That kind of thing. Yeah, like a hotel ballroom, you know, like.
Well, they have those accordion partitions there.
Yeah.
Or just a curtain.
Something more maybe soundproof.
Yeah.
How old? I'm guessing your kids are fairly young. Good luck with soundproofing. Period.
Yeah.
I have a question. So, what is the definition of a room? Because, for example, if I see this, so for example, I know the permit says that we have 8 rooms, but when I see that, it says that I count 7. I don't know. It's like, for example, in this area, there is no wall. So what is the definition of a room?
So I see 3 rooms on the first floor, 4 rooms on the second floor, which brings you to 7. And then you're proposing 2 rooms in the basement, which will bring you up to 9. So the town, is that right? Is that?
I think we've run across this before where you actually go by the use of an area. So you have a family room and eating area, which is 2 different uses. So those each count as a room. So you have 4 rooms on the first floor, 4 rooms on the second floor.
What if the kitchen was just an eating kitchen?
It's a kitchen, is it?
Yeah, because there is no wall there in that space.
Yeah, but it has a different use. That's how we count it. You have a dining
What if
room,
it's the
a kitchen.
Have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the first.
We go by use of the area.
Yeah.
This topic was also discussed during the process leading up to the development and the approval of the development of the Cooper Farm area.
So it brings you over the amount of, if they finish the basement into 2 rooms, it'll bring us over the room count, and your septic system is not adequate for that amount of rooms.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think that, Lisa, you know, I think that with the amount of rooms in this house that they're already over.
You're already over.
You know, 330, like, I think that never should have gone through to begin with. I don't know if the Board of Health even saw this and got a chance to vote on it.
We saw that thick book, right, that came through.
It's just frustrating. I mean, I think we need to do the right thing for the residents of Littleton and, give them the extra space in this time to do what they need to do.
No, but we're setting a precedent.
But we can't set a precedent, right? And I understand.
And as it said, 23 single homes. So
Right.
imagine if they're already up to capacity for flow right now, and then we let 23 people expand,
Yeah, you need 2,300 more gallons.
well, or a wastewater treatment plant.
That's a huge expense.
For an individual, but if the homeowners want to have the developers do it.
Michael, though, they can afford that. They're fine with that.
So can we at least, not use the whole wall, but maybe half of it, something like that? At least to have like a corner where we can put the desk with the computers and give some at least privacy here. I don't know. Is it possible or not?
No wall.
No.
One room.
You could maybe get some bookcases and make a wall of bookcases, something that's not going to be permanent.
Okay, so even putting this from the first column to this wall to this other wall, that's
No walls.
No walls.
No construction. No modification. Nothing.
okay.
Because once you pull a building permit, the Board of Health is going to have to sign off on it. That's the problem.
Okay.
So you want to make a motion, somebody?
Make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to continue this. And
I was thinking the same thing, Kevin. And I'd like to see I'd like to compare it to what Jones Meadow, we said no finished attic. Is that what we said?
attics and basement.
They're no finished attics, no finished basement, correct?
That was on the permit. I don't know if they're doing basements or not.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to continue it and
because we're going to see this again and again, and it's like let's just like make a plan instead of
Okay. Mike.
Yeah, I have a question. The baseline we're working from, I'm not sure what a continuation is designed to accomplish for us, because
deeper conversation between the developers and our health agent and the
well, all the developer has to do is come back and say, I want to expand or I want to increase the capacity of the shared septics, the shared waste removal system. And that's a different conversation that doesn't involve just the applicant here. It involves everybody else in the development.
Yeah.
So that's continuing. This does not solve the applicant's, shall we say, issue.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm looking for a way. I mean, several suggestions been made tonight to at least, put a division between the two things. And I don't think we have to give I think we have to give this family any hints. I think they're probably extremely inventive, especially after living with their kids all these months the way they are. They can probably figure out something that achieves not all, but some of their objectives. And if they want to basically open up the door for their own expansion the way they really want to do it, they're going to have to engage other people who've signed on to a similar agreement in this development area. So if by inviting this applicant to come back after a while, I don't know. It's not that it's totally in vain. It's just I'm not sure the conversation would go any far because he's not the developer. He's not the one.
No, understood. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. I just
think with Jim not being here tonight and getting a real handle on the exact room count. I haven't seen the building permit. I haven't seen what this has been approved for initially.
Well, it's okay. I mean,
we haven't had Jim at meetings for 2 years, and we've gone ahead and been able to make decisions based on his notes that he's given us. So I don't feel like we need to continue it.
I think you're right. The other thing too is if I forgot what I was saying. Something about if they bring it back, could they get denied again? And that would be even worse for their chances?
Yeah, I guess I just don't want to decline them and then like have the opportunity to be able to do something and then.
I would be, I don't know if we're allowed to do this, but since we're counting rooms and doing all that kind of, could we ask the two key members of the family here to say, oh, well, we're going to withdraw our request at this time. And can they withdraw their request? Because we haven't made a decision.
And give us a couple of weeks to circle back on this on the inside.
And then you can, reapply like fresh. In other words, no harm has been done. This is, preferable to having a vote and all the rest. You might be thinking of actions already that you're prepared to take. And so I want to give you it would be nice to give you a chance to consider some alternative approaches to this.
Okay.
And what does it mean to withdraw the request? Like start the permit again? The permit process?
Well, I want to find out first of all, from the chair and other folks here, if we can even do this and whether or not it accomplishes what you want to accomplish, which is to give this family a chance to innovate.
I mean, if you're agreeing with Kevin, then we should just continue it rather than make them start all over again.
Okay, I'm trying to signal something here about the continuation means they're with this application. Okay.
So to put in a potentially different application.
That's or a sufficiently modified one. Okay.
So, any motion to continue it or withdraw it? Kevin?
I'll make a motion to continue to the next meeting. And maybe we can consult with the Rodriguezes and try and figure out a solution that might be the right fit, not only for them, but for future folks coming forward within this development that may have similar hopes for finishing unfinished space.
I'm not sure if continuing it to the next meeting, I think they might need to get in touch with the developers and gather a group of other residents to see if they can move that along.
Continue until they're ready, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe come up with a plan B also.
Yeah, if they can, I guess if they can make it one big room too, instead of two. Janet, do you have any
Well, it's actually 3 really that they're making because they're putting in a wall for their mechanical area and then a wall to separate the larger area.
And it's room use.
However, that is not living space, right? And I think it's the room is considered living space. I don't think is the storage considered a room?
No, you're right.
There's also discussions we can have about keeping it heated, unheated, things like that, which wouldn't necessarily classify it as living area, usable space. So we can offline it.
All right. So we've had a motion to continue the discussion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All right. And roll call, Kevin Baker.
Baker, yes.
Louise Nichols.
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin.
No. Mike Zeldin, no.
Mr. Flanagan, yes. So if you guys want to go back to your developer, ask them if they can do anything for you guys, maybe get together with some more residents and see what they've done in their basement, try and keep the room count down, and get back to us when you either have a plan or more information.
Okay.
Give us a call.
So if we decide not to put the wall, then what? We can continue then?
I guess you'll come back to us with a new plan. Janet,
Mhm.
if they,
I mean, they have 9 rooms. The floats for 330. They're looking already at 440. We need to have a conversation.
The reasoning behind, I mean, ideally we want the 2 spaces, but also we want to do it as quick as we can, because yeah, we both working from home, our daughter from homeschooling, so continuing will be a nice option, but it will take a lot of time or more time, right?
I hear you. I feel your pain. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been already delayed for some weeks, so I think we can
Yeah.
move forward.
And we have here that materials are going up, so the price
The prices,
maybe go
right.
up.
I know. If you could even get them.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we decide, do we need to withdraw, or can we just move forward with the permit as with just one area?
no, you can't take out a permit just yet, I don't think.
No, she can't
Yeah.
do that. Yep. I mean, if they're proposing to come in with an application that says they want to do 1 room, it'll fall in line with the recommendation that we got from the review of the case. And also, I think comes right up to the borderline of exceeding the flow rate. Because again, we can't police the use of the unit and also of the house. And also it's built in. It's a restriction on what can be done with these particular houses. It's not unusual. I'm just saying it was. So if you're prepared to do 1 space, shall we say, just have 1 room there instead of 2. And if you look at your sketch, that's a different proposal.
Well, we could say we approve 1 room, right? And they
Yep.
wouldn't have to come back.
That would be a great solution, because it basically says that we 1 additional room space.
Yep.
So you could just, as it were, just don't worry about putting up a wall. Just say you're going to, as it were, finish the space in that 1 large area, and I'm sure your imagination will then take off on what you can do.
Yeah.
And then,
I think sorry.
That's a different idea entirely. So you're already innovating.
Yeah.
You're already taking the first step. Good.
Very creative.
Yeah, I think that will be
Yeah. So
good approach.
what will be the next step then? Do we need to talk to the builder and say to change the diagram then?
Not the builder, the construction.
Yeah, we're going to have to make another motion that says, I'll make it right now, that we recommend limiting the finished space to 1 room in the basement. And then we'll take a vote on it. And yeah, you change your plan.
I'll second that.
You'll need to have a deed restriction too, Lisa?
Yes, has to be built in.
Yep.
So I add that to the motion that a deed restriction will be placed on this property with 1 room in the basement.
One
One
finished.
finished
One finished space.
Sorry, Lou. Yeah.
No walls.
No.
But again, like what Kevin was saying, what about heat?
That's nothing's mentioned in the applicant, so
Okay.
we can't. It just says finished space, so it means
Space
it's
heated.
well,
Yeah, livable.
Okay, so Louise made the motion. Do I need a second one?
Second.
Second. Roll call. Kevin Baker,
Even bigger, yes.
Louise Nichols,
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Zeldin, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. And I guess what do we do about the continuation, Janet? Do we just cross that off?
Disregard.
Figure out what to do?
Well, we don't need a continuation if the
No, but we voted for a continuation, so
Yeah.
I don't want
Then we reached a,
Then we reach a mutual decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So yeah, you guys can, and do they need to still pull a permit for a finished basement?
Yep. I think
One
you
room?
do.
Yeah.
Yes, but before they can start, they have to submit the deed restriction.
Okay.
So you can call me
Talk to
tomorrow.
Janet. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All set?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
So
so
much.
much.
Hey,
You're welcome. Take care.
yes.
Thank you too.
Good night.
Good night.
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 So Janet, before we have to go through this again, how do we, because we did it with the Jones Meadow, did we say no finished attics or something like that? Is there a way that we can make a deed restriction, and set a precedent so that nobody comes to us with another two rooms in the basement?
I think that in the other neighborhood, it was part of the house contract. I think that since this isn't, I think it has to be individual deed restrictions.
Okay.
We can check.
How are there, I just have a question. How are there 9 rooms approved on 330 gallons?
I'm not the building commissioner. I don't know.
Well, we need to ask that question to our health agent, I think, because we're going to be seeing this over and over and over again.
Well, they counted as 3 bedrooms, maybe.
Well, yeah, but
I
then
believe in this.
a wink, wink office, and then,
Yeah.
you know, and then
I think it's a good question. I believe in this neighborhood, the developer is moving forward with the building prior to health sign off.
Garbage.
Who is the developer?
Fields?
The Field and the Cooper family.
All right, it's a little late. We had a COVID violation enforcement discussion with Chief Kennard at 7:30. Is Kennard online on the call? Judy or Dave? Is Matt there?
I'm looking for him. I don't see him
Oh,
yet.
thanks, Janet.
Chief Bernard, if you're there, can you raise your hand? I don't see him, Lisa.
Okay.
He stood us up.
Should I text him?
Yeah, this is coming up more often than we'd like, so I think we ought to
Yeah.
get him engaged somehow.
I have 2 numbers for him, so I'm not sure.
911. Don't do that.
I had to do that last Friday.
Oh,
I was a witness in an altercation.
what?
I was just taking a nice friendly walk. I had to make
Mean
a
streets on the mean streets of Littleton?
street, Goldsmith Street.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's a real hive of inequity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why my address is Pine. All right. Should we move forward?
Is that a technicality?
I haven't heard anything from him.
Yeah, he can come in later, maybe, huh?
Oh, wait a minute. Here he is. I completely forgot. I'll say yes, please.
I mean, he's trying to avoid the whole thing, right?
Support our police, Mike.
Gee, those are tax dollars that we pay them for, right? I'm trying to remember what exactly support. I'm sorry, is he coming on?
I asked him to. Yeah, he said he can log right on.
Okay, great.
Oh, Janet, can you send Matt the link? Is it easier, Janet, for you to send it to him than it is to have him look it up on the agenda?
Yep, I'm sending it to him now.
Thanks so much.
What do you got there?
Iced tea. I know I was going to mute my.
Yeah.
I'm going to be up all night. Caffeine.
How's the dental practice? You guys busy?
Swamped. So busy.
My sister was telling me the story that she's in Atlanta and her dentist, she works in, a big tall tower, office tower, and her dentist was in the lower floor. So everybody in the building would go down and go to the dentist on the lower floor. But now COVID, no one's there in the building. So his practice is
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. You find when it's good, it's good. You're got a captive audience. It's nice and easy, nice and convenient. But
Yeah, they're convenient. And then they are working from home. So they move to someone near home.
Yeah.
Just go to the burbs.
I'd move on, but
Is there any other correspondence or anything we can bang through?
we had a couple of. There was a letter from Caprice Tarbox, but Janet, I wonder if and then there was a letter sent recently from Amy Kaz to Clunchy, but Janet, do you know if Jim was able to go to the Common Convenience regarding the letter from Caprice Tarbox?
I don't recall. They seem to blend together. I know it's been out there numerous times. I just don't know if it was from the latest letter or not.
Yeah, she sent it to him too, and this was October 1st, so it was a while ago.
We have to be careful because I think Littleton, along with a lot of other communities nearby, are moving out of the preferred status.
Mm-hmm.
It's
on its way.
Has the, Mike, have you heard anything more about the Oktoberfest? Did they cancel that?
I haven't heard or seen anything about it.
Okay.
I think they didn't get their liquor license, so it'd be hard to have an Oktoberfest without any beer.
I don't drink beer, so I don't know.
I know.
Is that impossible to have?
I think.
Yes.
It's impossible to make any money, probably.
Why have an Oktoberfest if you're not having beer, right?
Bernard is here now, Lisa.
All right. Thanks, Chief Pinard. How are you tonight? Thanks for joining us.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can hear you. Can't see you. We can hear you.
Sorry, I'm in my truck. My phone completely died. I have no charger at home. I apologize.
What?
Welcome to my world.
With your budget? My goodness.
Oh, Mike, let's not talk about budgets now, okay?
That's all you can do is laugh about it.
What kind of phone do you have, Matt? Maybe we can get you one for home.
Oh, that's awful nice. How about a new laptop?
See how quickly he escalates and he wonders about his budget.
That's okay. Yeah, I was just going to give him a charger.
Crowdfunding for you, maybe. We'll get you some.
All good. I'm in my truck. It's all good.
Okay.
All right.
I have a new puppy at the house, so you don't want to hear the barking and the chaos going on. So
Oh,
I
my
apologize.
goodness. The COVID puppy.
Pandemic.
No. This puppy was ordered a year ago, so all good.
All right.
All right. So, Matt, I think we want to talk a little bit about what's happening with the violations. And I guess you guys are getting phone calls. We're getting letters, trying to figure out, and Jim's not here tonight, but who can we say is responsible for violations that people in town are coming to us with?
So I'll start by saying that if we do receive a complaint or we do witness parties that are happening, we are going and we are educating them as to what it actually is state mandated right now for them to follow for procedures and how they should be and should not be social distancing. As far as violations, again, I'm going to leave that to the Board of Health, as we're not going to be considered the party police, but we are going to be here for enforcement to assist you guys in any way, shape, or form.
It was my understanding that you were burdened with the responsibility of quote doing exactly what you just said, with educating first, second, and third. And the idea is not to get people, shall we say, exercised to the point where we're getting less compliance and resentment and more compliance. We need it now more than ever. So I appreciate the efforts that you're making in, shall we say, gentle education to those that are not complying.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct, Mike. And I know that everybody's referring to the rumors and whatnot that we had a party in town that was broken up, and yes, that is in fact true. And we worked with the every parent, and we made sure they were educated in regards to it. And again, we're trying to do the best we can in such a difficult time to make sure that everybody is educated in regards to the social distancing and what has been put forth by the state.
Yeah, well, the state leaves us with some leeway, and the situation is pretty, at the moment, moving into a more a dynamic situation where even more patience has to be experienced.
I agree.
So education, and support, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of, no matter what, it's going to be a collaborative effort between the local board, the Neshoba Board of Health, and the police department, as well as the fire department, as to how we proceed forward. It's my understanding that Littleton went to a red zone tonight. Not sure if anyone wants to clarify that or not, but
We didn't see the numbers yet.
Yeah, according to my wife, she just saw the new
Yeah.
map, and Littleton was considered a red zone. So that's what I was told tonight.
It
Chief,
doesn't take much to boost us into the red zone, given our relative
Yeah.
our population. But we're asking people after many months of going through all of this to continue doing it, and it's getting, I think, harder. And I think that we're going to have to think a little bit more about how to keep encouraging folks to do, shall we say, the things that will at least keep this virus at bay. It's very hard because it's already here and it's not going anywhere. It's like it's out of control. I mean, no matter how you look at it, it's not controlled.
Sucks. Chief, we did nominate you, as an agent of the Board of Health, so you have every single power that we do, as as according to Mass General Law and the CMR. So, let us know if you need any information on that or anything that we can do to help you be able to enforce what you need to enforce on the back end.
Yeah, no, I greatly appreciate that. And again, we have been working tirelessly in regards to this whole entire issue. And I do appreciate the collaboration that we actually do have, all of us together. Unfortunately, this is probably going to come out very wrong when I say this, but I've been known to say things before. But this also comes out to a parenting and a general knowledge issue amongst
common sense, really, is what it is.
Yeah, it does. Okay,
come out and say it. It's fine. Yeah.
This
Scott says it all the time.
I'm sorry to bust your bubbles, guys, but common sense has nothing to do with human behavior. I mean, the idea that they're somehow linked is an illusion. All you have to do is look at Europe and some of the other states in the United States where people's desire to keep them going with their jobs, to get in their car, go where they want, socialize who they want to. These are normal human things. And when you deprive people of these kind of normal things they do, what right now is not a common sense thing to do. It gets overridden very easily. Real easy.
So, Matt, there's in one instance there was you guys went out to the house on Beaver Brook, but at that point the party was over and no one was there. You said your officer knocked on the door, no one was there.
Yep, that's correct. We followed up there twice after you and I had spoken, and there's been no activity and no further activity from what was allegedly reported to the PD.
Okay. I guess the neighbor, did they call you, and did the dispatcher say that it's a Board of Health issue? Because, it's kind of like once the party's over and there's nothing to, educate people on, it's over. So I was just wondering if there was if somebody crossed paths and maybe the dispatcher said that's Board of Health, and then the people, the neighbor replied to us or sent us a letter, and it's over by the time we get it. So does everybody?
Again, if we do see the violation, we will follow it up. If it's occurring, I definitely do not want any member of our Board of Health walking into a party, especially if there's alcohol consumption, and try to educate people. That definitely is the Littleton Police Department's job. I know that you have given us support. But yes, again, this is going to come down to a common sense thing, and we will do the follow up for the Board of Health, and we will make sure that we're educating these people as to the spread of COVID-19, and also, what they should and should not be doing.
Is dispatchers directed to say call the Board of Health?
That is unclear, and I talked to Lisa about this already, and I apologize. They should not be saying call the Board of Health. They will, if there is a major party that is going on and is being reported to us, we will go there and we will investigate and we will educate. But no, they should not be saying call the Board of Health. It's their issue. We are agents of the Board of Health. We did talk about this when COVID first started, and there was all the sanctions that were put amongst us. So we will continue to be agents of the Board of Health. But again, we're not going to be the party police that are going out actively looking for this.
Has anything happened about, what was that house that had the tents out in the front and lots of cars? Was that Beaverbrook or is that a different one?
That's what Lisa was talking about in
Okay.
regards to Beaverbrook. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, like 30 cars on the front lawn.
Yeah.
I think I'd really love to make the distinction between businesses that Jim is kind of in charge of and the residents that you guys can help us with. Because I don't want Jim, like you said, Board of Health members. I'm not going to somebody's house party. I don't think Jim should either.
Unless you were invited.
No, I agree with you, Lisa. And I did actually consult with Jim immediately in regards to the house party that we actually went to get some clarification as to how we should be following up on this further, with the schools and with the community itself.
Yeah. I assume that the schools are making well known to the kids too, right? Something
Yes, very much so. And again, they're trying to do the best that they can. I mean, to handle what they have going on within the school during the daytime, and they can control all of that, and with remote learning and whatnot. But we're doing the best we can to assist them.
Right.
Chief, does your company, does your organization have enough protective materials so that when you do approach a situation, not just like this, but in others, are you equipped so that your officers, including you, are protected as much as possible? Do you have the gear that you need?
Oh, are you talking about PPE, Mike?
Yeah, masks,
shields.
I mean, people do oddball things when confronted, and I would hate to have one of your officers put in a compromised position because of that, enforcing the town, Board of Health stuff. But
no, Mike, we actually I implemented a policy right when all of this started. Every call that's supposed to go on, if they can't be 6 feet apart outside, then they're to have a mask on. If they are outside on an outdoor call and they are able to stay 6 to 10 feet apart, then they can take their mask off to have a better direct conversation with them. But as far as PPE, we're very well stocked with PPE. We worked with the fire department to make sure that they're stockpiling some for us as well as themselves. And my administrative assistant is actually in charge of taking care of all the orders for PPE, for the CARES Act, and for reimbursement.
Okay. So where I'm heading with this, and this is probably trivia, is that as the temperatures outdoors drop, the temptation, unless they have these propane or whatever kind of heaters running, people will be moving more and more indoors. And I don't know what your rules are of engagement. I would imagine that you just can't walk into somebody's house unless they let you in. It's when you walk into an enclosed space, and where air circulation isn't fantastic, and you got people who probably are not going to be all masked. So that's where I'm just expressing concern about your officers.
Thank you very much, but I greatly appreciate you looking off my guys and gals. But yes, we have the proper PPE. But again, no, we're not kicking doors in to see if there's more than 25 people in a house. And I don't plan on having them do that as well. But we'll take all necessary precautions.
Okay.
Matt, just to get back to the school issue, do you still have DARE officers in the schools?
So we have a school resource officer and an SRO, which is Detective Janakis. Detective Janakis was, in regards to the issue that was brought forward, was right on this the following day. He's in touch with school administration on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis, and very receptive. And again, we're not looking for any punishment in any regards, but we are definitely looking for education and to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for the entire student body population as well as our community.
No, that's great. That's great.
All right. Do we have any questions for Matt? I know we're jumping a little bit. We're going to be discussing Halloween later on, Matt. Do you want to come back on, or do you want to give us your 2 cents right now?
So I can give you my 2 cents right now if you'd like. And again, this is going to go back to a parenting issue, and how you want to parent your children. I think if everybody's wearing the proper PPE or the mask, staying 6 feet apart, I don't see any issue with us not hosting Halloween on Halloween night. I know Salem. I talked to a couple different chiefs today. We had about 4 or 5 different Zoom meetings today. Regional chiefs, Central Mass chiefs, and again, they're trying to educate in regards to not having Halloween parties, especially the adults. But as far as going door to door and getting candy for the kids and normal Halloween adventures, they're gonna keep with them. I hope that it's my philosophy that we'll follow through with having Halloween, unless Governor Baker comes up with something different. Then I guess at that point we'll be changing what we desire, or if the local board desires to tell me that we really don't want it and you guys want to shut Halloween down, then I will definitely assist you in that.
We're the bad guys.
I'm not being the bad guy.
We are.
You're going to blame
I
us.
think I think it can be done very safely, and I think we can still have some fun with it. Just hopefully that the Halloween parties that people were thinking about having are held off.
Yep. Okay. I think that's what was kind of what I was thinking, but I just wanted to know if you guys had anything else you were concerned about as.
And I'm actually working with John Guilfoyle. We're going to be putting out a press release probably the end of the week, next week, just stating exactly what our plans are for Halloween and what people should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be. We may be slipping into. We have some of the numbers don't look very promising, and given the behavior, the shifts in behavior, I hope we can adapt.
Yeah, Mike, that was something I was going to wanted to talk a little bit more about when we got down to the administrative matter. So.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for Matt? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Again, all of you should have my cell phone number. If you have any questions offline, feel free to call me, text me, write me, email me, snail mail me, whatever you guys need. I'm available for you guys, and we'll always be.
I'll snail mail you. We'll talk like November 15th.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sending you a text right now, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of figured you would be, Lisa. Yeah, I have that text, Lisa, and yes,
thank you.
It's being handled as we speak. Thank you for being a witness.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Oh, anytime.
Lisa, can you send me his number?
For that person, I would definitely be a witness. So
You're the best. All right, guys. Again, feel free to call me if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
All right, a little late, but now gonna talk to our cat team. you guys have a presentation for us tonight, and Mike Fontanelle is on too. So
Okay.
thanks, Mike.
Hello.
Hey, Mike.
So I guess I should just take a minute to introduce the COVID advisory team here. Kevin Davis, Katrina Wilcox-Hagberg, John Castillo, and Corey Painter. We've been working hard sort of behind the scenes to just try and figure out a way to get ahead of this thing a little bit, find out if we can create a crystal ball, see where things are coming from, try and I guess figure out some solutions to testing, contact tracing, but most importantly, I guess education for the community. So I'll let Corey sort of kick things off and speak to the slide deck that was put together. I think Judy has the file there, and we can get that going.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm just going to basically pass it over to Katrina. I really appreciate the support of Kevin and the rest of the Board of Health. And this has been, you know, a very trying time for everybody. And I just want to underscore that we're just hoping we can provide information as each of you try to make these really challenging decisions and try to educate yourself, and that we're here for you to support you in whatever way we can.
So I guess I'm up. So I don't know who has control of the slide. If you could advance the slide, that'd be great. So at the last Board of Health meeting, the Board of Health created the CAT team, or the COVID advisory team, with the goal to provide an advisory role to the Littleton Board of Health, and if there are others who need some help and assistance. So the priorities we were tasked with were to look into COVID health metrics for Littleton, to work on some education pieces, which after hearing the chief could be very useful, investigate possibilities of testing, especially within the school, and then explore technologies that may enhance our current contact tracing or exposure notification system. I can advance the slide. So before I get started, I'm going to blast through a lot of metrics, and I want to give you enough background so that you kind of understand the metrics as you see them come out from the state. But there's a lot of information. If you mind holding your questions, it might actually help me get through it, and I might answer it later. And then at the end, I'll pause and we can go through those. So by now, everyone's seen this color-coded map, and unfortunately, Littleton turned red today. Mass DPH has been presenting this data since early August in this format. And around that same time, the school committee was trying to look at the metrics to see if they can get an idea of how we should open the schools. So what model they should use. So next slide. So due to the size of our population, we're not that big, and it's a little challenging to report the numbers and interpret the data when there's just a few cases can create a large swing in our rates. Also, SARS-CoV-2 doesn't stop at town borders, so it is appropriate to kind of look at the areas around us, the towns that surround us. So with this in mind, when the schools, I was talking to some of the school members, and the school committee itself also adopted a kind of thinking of concentric circles that surround Littleton. So we look at Littleton, the border communities, the surrounding communities, like a 495 belt, and then also the county and the state level. So next slide. So the data we use for these calculations are published weekly in the town report that the Mass DPH puts out. It comes out every Wednesday by 6 p.m., which means that as of now, everything I'll report is outdated by 1 week. Unfortunately, your meeting time is very hard to get a current update on that. But as I said, just for this week's report that just came out, the report has 11 cases over the last 14 days, which results in an average daily incidence rate of 8.1 per 100,000 people. This is the first time that Littleton's been in the red, if you will. However, like I said, due to the timing of the report, everything I report from here on out is actually based on last week's report. So the next slide, please. So these are the kind of numbers you'll see on the school committee's report that they've been sharing. So this is the average daily case rates per 100,000 population in the various town groupings that we've come up with. Last week we had 9 cases over 14 days, which was a rate of 6.6, which put us in the yellow, which was a moderate risk community last week. And then the cases aggregated for border communities and continuous communities were lower. They were around 3.4 to 3.7. And then it got, the 495 belt has some higher risk communities in it, like Lowell and Marlborough, who have been consistently higher. So that's 6.9. And then the state has been hovering, county and state have been in the 5s for a while. It's pretty, they're going up, but around 5. So the next slide has the, try to make it easier to see, we started graphing the rates. So as you can see, we started on the August 5th and kept going forward. We keep adding every week. And as you can see, they're trending higher for every grouping that we see. Littleton's that dark blue line, which has had a large acceleration over the last few weeks. But again, that goes from 3 cases to 11 cases over 3 weeks' time, which makes it hard, which is part of the reason we are looking at the border communities and the communities that just surround our border communities. And those are around 3.5 to 4 around at this point. So, so I do want to point out that the state DPH board just released their definition of not high risk communities. I'm sorry, not low risk communities. See, it's very confusing. So a not low risk community is a community that's been in the red for 3 or more weeks. So at this point, Littleton, as of today's report, is the first week we would be in the red. So we still, they do encourage a couple weeks of data just to see how the trends are going for decision making. And DESE, the schools, has encouraged the schools, they published in their own guidelines that you should consider a couple weeks of trends before you make decisions about whether to change the model for school. So while we hit the red this week, I think we still have to keep in mind that there's another week or so we're going to have a better idea whether we're going to stay in the red, keep going up, or if we might dip back down. And we'll get into more of ways we maybe can help people dip back down later in this report. So if you go to the next one, another thing that the state has started including in the report since the middle of August is the rates per 100,000 by age group. And this is for the entire state. This is not done by town, but I think this gives us a good idea of who we should be targeting interventions with or keeping an eye on. I added 2 vertical lines to this graph, one at the beginning of September and one at the middle of September, because those roughly relate to when colleges opened. Early September, there was some loosening of state reopening guidelines as well. And then the September 16th is the first day of school. For most communities, that was the first day of school. So as you can see, the rates are highest for people 20 to 49. Those first 3 lines are those age groups, but there's like a little uptick in that 0 to 19 group, which is the orange group. And that definitely seems to correspond to the opening of schools, which you can see. The unfortunate thing is that's a very wide age band, and it's probably hiding some differences for various age groups. Because I think a kid anyone who's under 5 is probably very different than someone who's in school, in elementary school, and then a high schooler probably looks more like a 20-year-old than they do a 5-year-old. So it would be great if this was split out a little differently so we could help with decision making. But in summary, the rates are increasing for all age group, which is likely correlated to our increased mobility and reopening of business and colleges and schools. And I was listening to Governor Baker's presentation the other day, and he was indicating that the contact tracing effort around the state kind of indicates that the non-masked social gatherings, such as what Chief Pennard discussed earlier tonight, and also asymptomatic household spread or pre-symptomatic household spread is kind of driving our numbers in our state. So maybe this is things we might want to talk about when we get back to the education stage. So if you go to the next slide. So this, again, this is something we've been doing with the schools. This is test positivity. This is another metric that the state publishes every week. Littleton this week is about a 1.4% test positivity. So this test positivity is all tests that are positive over all tests that are done. This includes people who test more than one time for surveillance efforts. So colleges, some businesses do routine testing, healthcare workers who get more than one test. So this is kind of a selected population of who can access the test on a regular basis, and they may look different in terms of who's contracting COVID. So while this is helpful, in some ways, it's going to take a lot of positives to budge this number in a way that's useful for us to understand or use as a metric. So if you go to the next slide, so you can see it's kind of, there's been a decline on the state level, but it's starting to trend up again. But it's, for a while, it was really flat, and it was, it's been hard to use this metric because, you know, Harvard's threshold is 3%, and if it depends on who's getting tested, I'm not sure how we can use this in a meaningful way. The state recently in the daily report started reporting individual test positivity, which is the number of individuals who test positive over the number of individuals tested in the 2-week period. And that number has been about 2 to 2.5 times higher than the all test positivity number. So if we think about extrapolating that kind of difference into the town level, then we're looking at Littleton being, you know, today it was 1.4% test positivity. Littleton will be around 3, or just under 3. So that is one metric I wish we could get our hands on. Unfortunately, we do not have that. So if you go to the next slide. So each week we give this is slightly different than what the school reports that I've been providing them with, but the idea being that the overall average daily case rates in our area as of the October 7th report were 3.4 to 6.9, depending on which town grouping we were looking at. Littleton last week was yellow with 9 cases over the 14 days prior and a rate of 6.6, but we were trending higher. Test positivity was 1.3 or 2.8. I think I had a typo there, and it was trending higher as well. And everything seems to be ticking up, whether it's testing positivity or, and more importantly, the case rate. So even on the county and the state level. So, and also of importance is those rates are increasing for all age groups since mid-September. There's no one isolated group. We're trending upwards as everyone, as a community, not just an individual group. And I think this is what we know about COVID. This is likely related to the mobility and mixing of people since colleges, schools, and phase 3, part 2, businesses reopenings, or phase 3 openings, and most recently part 2 openings. So we know that COVID takes advantage when we mix more, and we are mixing more, and the rates are showing that. So the next slide. So unfortunately, there's a lot of challenges with these kind of health metrics. We are restricted to the data that the state provides, which are published on a weekly basis. There's a lag time between the time an individual is exposed and seeks testing, and then that positive test gets entered into the data, or the negative test gets entered into the data. From my contacts, it sounds like it's about a week, maybe a week and a half from that first exposure to the time that the data is entered. And the data collection period ends on a Sunday, and we don't get the report until Wednesday, so there's a few more days baked into there that the data is lagged. So something to keep in your mind as we're looking at this, because that we're a little outdated. We're looking backwards, not forwards. And so these metrics are just one piece of a larger puzzle. So there are likely other stakeholders in town that have some little bits of information that when combined, we might actually get a better picture, overall picture of what's happening, and who is at risk or how we might be able to educate to improve things. And like having an understanding of what the contact tracers learn, and I understand there's privacy issues to that, but if there's a pattern in who's becoming exposed and who's becoming positive, that might be another way that we could get a little more information about where interventions or education has to happen. And it also might be good to look at within our community and look for other higher risk settings and just check in to see how they're doing with risk mitigation strategies and application of those. So that's not only the schools, but Park and Rec has their remote learner program, the senior center, I don't know if they're gathering or not, daycares, the life care center, you might want to check in with them again to see how they're doing, or any other group resident setting or large business. All of them have a little piece of this puzzle and a stake in the game. So it would be great to know how they're doing and where problems might arise. And anything we can do now to take that ounce of prevention was worth a pound of cure mentality is well needed at this point, probably a little late actually. So at this point is a good time for me to pause and have you guys, if you have questions about metrics. Everyone's
All right, Mike, here's your chance.
I'm ready for Mike.
You're talking about Mike Fontanella, right?
No.
No, I want to
Yes,
ask you
yes.
first. I want to ask Mike Zeldin first.
Okay.
This is your stuff, Mike.
No, it's not. Actually, it's not my stuff. This is getting sort of not repetitive, but we're still flying blind, and the spread of the virus is out of control. Very obviously, it's not at the rampaging stage, and short of, shall we say, continuing education, telling people to reinforce, and I don't know how to be more effective than we were before, given the nature of human nature to socialize and what are called pandemic fatigue. We're upward trends. I mean, there are very few places in the world at the moment that aren't showing an uptick. And when we try to look at Littleton, it's we've already covered it. And I think that without not just single surveillance testing, but a real vigorous testing where people are being tested just about every day, that would be very helpful. But I have to tell you that I haven't seen any data yet or any reports yet, with one exception, that education centers in Littleton in particular, I can't speak for other areas, but I've heard nothing about, shall we say, events that have been traced properly to the schools. And the only bit I've got is probably would be classified anecdotal, where there was a report of all places in a report, I guess was it a news report from a totally different location, citing the fact that there were a couple of cases in a special education center here in Littleton, where suddenly there cropped up several cases involving both staff and students. So I just don't know if they were followed up and what that means from a tracing. And even if it did, we're still flying blind.
Were there students here in Littleton, or were they in other neighborhoods? Do you know anything about that?
No, they were. I didn't even know that this school had a name. But what's it called, Mike Fontanella? The Littleton Academy?
JRI
don't attend
Meadow
school in
Ridge
Littleton?
Littleton Academy School. JRI Meadow Ridge operates several facilities across the state, and each one's called the JRA Meadow Ridge.
So totally different from Meadowbrook, not
And
affiliated with.
Mike Fontanella, you said that they don't even attend school here in Littleton.
Correct. They're located near the high school. They're across from the Dunkin' Donuts gas station down on King Street.
Oh, that's the home for wayward kids.
No, it's Littleton Academy.
Yeah, yeah, it's not that, but
That's what I thought it was.
yeah, it's a residential program. It's independent. The kids just attend programs in that building and facility. They don't come into our buildings for any programming or any education.
So
Yeah, I'm sorry. My guess is, and just as a guess, that more than likely how many people fell ill from the disease, they got counted in.
Well, that was actually a question I have because the state reports your residents. So do these individuals at the school count as Littleton residents, or are they attributed to their wherever they came from? And sometimes, like we ran into this with the life care center where the employees were being attributed back to wherever they resided, and the life care center residents were being counted in Littleton. So I wish Jim Gareffi was here and could answer that question, because that would be really helpful to know. I mean, it's hard to know with these 11 cases. Is this the bubble that is making us red? Is this like a one event that's contained and we can get it back down? Or is this not counted in our numbers and this is happening elsewhere? It's hard to tell.
And even if we assume for the moment that let's assume that none of the folks who got infected at that center are necessarily Littleton residents, we still end up with the mystery of where these events are occurring, whether or not they're Littleton residents or not. Because at this moment, with increased mobility, I'm sure the staff stops by maybe only once somewhere in Littleton to get gasoline or get coffee or what. Without being accusatory here, we have no idea what's going on. It's invisible, opaque.
So I actually have one more slide that may be relating to the school issue. If we want to go to the next slide, I can do that real quick. And maybe this might help with your part of this, Mike Fontanella. So all the research I've done, trying to figure out how school outbreaks happen, really suggests that COVID cases reported in school settings are actually correlated to higher community prevalence rates. So that the more cases or the higher our rate is, the more likely we're going to detect a case inside the school. And Governor Baker, again, he alluded to the non-mass social gatherings, and asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic household transmissions are big sites of transmission right now. So I know that DESE started publishing the number of cases reported in each school district. They started this 2 weeks ago. And I realized this week that we could cross-tab that with the rates from the October 7th report and kind of get an idea of, if is it that we're just getting cases no matter what your rate level, or is it that the higher prevalence in the communities are really leading to seeing more cases in the schools? So I just did this crude assessment right now, taking the cross-tabbing both of those things, and made this visualization for that. So the lowest risk communities are in the upper left, and then you'd read it across the top. And then the highest risk communities, the red ones, are in the bottom right corner of this. So you can kind of think of these like a heat map. The higher the rates of COVID are in a town, the more likely the school districts are to have one or more cases inside their buildings reported. So I know we've been really hyper-focused on the schools, and because they're settings where large groups gather, and so there is risk there. But I think it's really important for us to remember this isn't what's happening in the schools as actually a reflection of what's happening in our communities. So the effort to prevent this community spread is going to rely on our ability to dig deep and to try to find those narratives, like try to understand the case tracing, who they are. Is this happening within households? Is this happening? I don't think it's just those parties. I think it's the casual things, even like my kids come home from school, we're all sharing air inside of our household. So that kind of stuff. So I think it's important for us to remember that schools are one side of this, but everywhere is impacted. I think this is still a good place to pause and continue this discussion.
I want to ask a question of Mike, if he happens to know. Have there been any reported cases without identifiers of infections in the school, in the public schools?
Through yesterday, we had 0 students and 0 staff with reported cases of COVID.
Awesome.
And I did look to see if the state had updated that school by school spreadsheet. They have not. It's still as of October 7th. So, I mean, we know what our numbers are, but it would be interesting to see if the Meadow Ridge School had any changes, but that has not been updated. But we've had 0 among students and staff. And today was a remote day, so that's why we don't have data for today or through today.
That's great, Mike. Does anybody else have more to present or any other questions? Mike Fontanella, do you have any questions for the advisory team?
No, I mean, I appreciate all the work that this group is doing, especially Katrina, because she's been on this for a while now, helping us out too. And everything I hear, I agree with. And I would just echo, I think Katrina kind of said it herself too. Littleton's difficult. We're so small that trying to parse through the data to identify trends is tricky business because we're just not big enough to really necessarily have trends. Things that happen could happen for a specific reason in a specific area and then never happen again. That's just how because we're so small. That's the bad part about being small. The good part is that we don't necessarily have to look for trends because we can just basically look at each case and deal with it case by case because we're small. So I'm very supportive, and the school committee is supportive of this type of effort. There are no panaceas. I can tell already. There are no magic bullets. I know Mike Zeldin has talked a lot about testing. That might be one, but doesn't look like it's going to happen. So, we're open to every suggestion. We're open to consideration. We're open to cooperation. But there is no magic bullet. It's going to be a lot of little different things that we do while we're navigating this together that's going to help us mitigate outbreaks, deal with spikes, things like that.
It is, yeah. And I think that, the idea behind this COVID advisory team is to try and keep things open, and to do the best we can to sort of get ahead of the curve and try and formulate some sort of crystal ball and see where we're headed.
To that end, I do want to say we do have quite a bit left in terms of presentation. We have
a lot of slides.
We can fly through it. I didn't set up the talk very well. We have some on testing that John's going to present. Then we have some stuff on contact tracing, and we have some stuff on aerosol transmission. So maybe we could get through those slides too.
Yeah, Judy has them.
Is there anything in your presentation that you would classify as, quote, new, that is new in the last 48 hours?
New to who?
Yeah.
To you, because, and the reason I'm mentioning this is that it's quite remarkable that the amount of information flow there is to people who are watching it, as it were, who are paying attention to it. So the reason I'm asking you if there's anything new, because the topics you mentioned have been around now for quite a while. I mean, the aerosol one that everyone seems to be very interested in, or to me, it's a rediscovery because it's been in, if you pardon the pun, in the wind from the beginning. And it's
Sure.
like common sense. I mean, it's like rediscovering, this is a wheel here. We can roll this down the hill again.
Mhm.
So
I'm just interested if you've seen anything. I mean, I was being facetious, but
Yeah, of course. I would say in this presentation, there's new information about potential for testing that is not new in the world, but I mean, I don't think that it's actually been brought.
It's new
here.
to this audience, I'm sure.
And then, in terms of aerosol, yes, it was discovered. It was thought, it was widely publicized, then it was taken away, and then it was put back. And so there is some confusion there in policy stemming from droplet versus aerosol that I think would be really important for the Board of Health to weigh in on. with respect to tracing, notification of people, and it might be good to discuss those. Though it's not new, still probably really relevant.
So speaking of various levels of interventions, so the next thing the CAT team was tasked with was to advise on community education and public messaging. So this is an image that has been passed around and improved over the last few weeks among epidemiologists. I really like the Swiss cheese image because, one, who doesn't like cheese? But also because it illustrates that there's multiple layers of intervention needed. There's no one silver bullet that's going to take this out. We're going to need to keep using these layers of intervention for the long haul. And no one layer is perfect. They all have limitations. So we need to use them all, as many as we can in every circumstance, to help prevent spread. And I'd say our schools or towns and many local businesses are already using a number of these strategies. And it's important to note that some of these layers rely really heavily on the individual responsibility. That's the responsibility to wear a mask, to keep distance, to choose lower risk settings, like outdoors, to understand what you should do if you or someone in your family has been exposed, and how to act and how to prevent further transmission. And then there are other layers that are much more formal processes, like the contact tracing. And the one layer we don't currently have much of in Littleton is the rapid surveillance testing. That's something, like Corey mentioned, we're going to discuss a little more detail later tonight. So the next slide. So one of the advisory's team's focus is to help education and bring some science-based messaging to empower Littleton residents to make safer choices. Since so much of this is driven by individual choices, this is something that I wish we, and the messages are confusing given various reasons right now in the world. So this is something I think if we could create some common messaging about for our town, that we might be able to get some, build some community around and some community response around. So some of the things we came up with for messaging included what to do if you're exposed, what are the symptoms, what's the difference between quarantine and isolation, and when should you use them? There are things like the COVID mitigation strategies around holiday gatherings like Halloween, or safer ways to socialize, especially in the winter. And there's always the proper fitting mask and what is a higher risk setting kind of topics. These are all important. And then if you talk to individuals in our town, there's not a consensus. Not everyone understands the risk they're taking. So I think, and after listening to Chief Kennard tonight, I think getting information into the right people's hands is important, not only through the website or partnering the schools to get it into their weekly emails, or partnering with other town departments who have a social media presence, such as the police or the fire department. EHS would be a great one. It would hit another demographic, working with them to get in their broadcaster newsletter. Giving the chief something to hand out when he has to break out a party. I don't know. We've got to get creative. And if there's any way we can get into the heads of high schoolers and try to convince them that there are creative ways to gather, but are lower risk, would be great too. So the next slide. So, as we know, it's upon us, this Halloween. And as the chief and you guys have already started discussing, this is one of those areas where sometimes forbidding something actually makes it worse, because it brings it behind closed doors and you can't see what's happening. But there are ways that I think you can make trick-or-treating less risky, or reduce the harm that could be from making various choices around Halloween. And some of that is, all of these things that are listed here came from the CDC holiday guidance from Halloween. Something like not wearing a character mask this year, but wearing a regular mask, or if you're sick with COVID or been exposed, don't go out this year. If you're trick-or-treating, stick with people in your known bubble or your family group. If you're handing out candy, don't have that common candy bowl and have everyone come to your doorway. Think of ways to spread out the candy and then make it so that people are touching fewer things as they trick-or-treat. And then I think the biggest thing is trying to discourage those large gatherings of any sort, like the costume parties, the trunk or treat, Oktoberfest kind of falls into that large gathering situation. And also from doing any activity that has a risky COVID behavior kind of activity. So those parties are a big concern, actually. And then trying to get that information into the right people's hands. For example, trick-or-treating, it would be great if you could partner with the schools and get that letter shared out with families to, we're going to do trick-or-treating, but this is what we expect. However, there's one huge caveat here, is that trick-or-treating is going to rely on a low level of community spread in our area. And I haven't done the numbers for the area yet, so that's hard to say. Littleton being red based on 11 cases is also hard to interpret. But if we keep going up, we might need to rethink trick-or-treating, in my opinion. So this wraps up my part of the presentation tonight, if anyone has questions.
Could I ask a question before we do screening?
Yeah.
And the question is this. So far, what I'm impressed by is the depth of information given the limitation on the data that we have in front of us. And is it possible that we're not taking into account in our effort to provide information the prevailing attitudes and beliefs on the part of the population? What I'm asking is, do we think it'd be worthwhile to do something something on the line of a Survey Monkey or something similar, where we have a number of questions where we can determine whether or to what extent is our population believing or accepting a lot of misinformation about the status of the disease, about the level of contagiousness and the danger intrinsic in getting infected with this virus, because there's a lot of information and, as it were, a lot of a diversity of attitudes, but I think there are clumps of them, aggregates of them. And sometimes I feel when we're in this group here that we're very conscious of what the what the risks are, but I'm not sure we understand the general public's outlook in Littleton. And I was wondering, be worthwhile if we could construct, if it's even worthwhile to construct a survey of the town, try to get sufficient numbers to give us some idea of where people's thinking is, so we can sharpen our education and our messaging. It's a question I'm putting out. Because I'm sorry.
That's all right. As you, in your words, Mike, couldn't we just sharpen the education instead of asking people what they understand, just sharpen it right off the bat?
It's not, I'm sorry, I probably misspoke. It's not understanding, it's a point of view or attitude. Unfortunately, either by pure coincidence, but I do detect a skepticism about certain features of this disease on the part of folks who will say to me point blank that CDC doesn't know what they're talking about. It's all put up. I mean, it's not extremism. This is basically the result of confusion. And when we repeat this is coming from the CDC or whatever we present, I'm just raising the question, is it getting through? Is our education getting through? Or are people, as it were, pretty well sold on their own ideas about this?
So, Mike, I see the point you're raising. And I think after 8 months of going through what we were going through, if people's minds haven't changed, I don't think it's going to change. If their attitude is stuck on this, if they have the attitude that they have, I don't think anything else is going to sway their view. So I think for the general, like as Lisa mentioned, for the general public, just if you have the information out there, they can take it in, and then they're more informed. But to some of the clusters that you're referring to, if their mind is set on and their views are set, I don't think it's going to get swayed.
What I'm struck by, it's a sad statement, but I agree with you. But the problem I have here is there's something going on, because I'm overly impressed, but the fact that the public schools are very, very, shall we say, quiet, and whether it's due to the program, yes, but there is something about that population that so far, including most of the parents, who have caught on to what's going on. And there's a trust in the school system that town-wise hasn't spread, or something of that sort. So I don't want to waste people's time with the idea, because I tend to agree with you on the topic of people's already locked into their point of view. If that's the case, then my favorite slide of all the mitigation, shall we say, the Swiss cheese version, is that people basically are ignoring, enough people are ignoring it, putting others at risk as a result.
So so as epidemiologists, we have the saying that 80% is 100%. Like, you can't get everyone. That's just not possible. So if you can get 80%, you're doing an awesome job. And also, if you're in public health, you can't say that everyone's stuck in their ways and never going to change. That is not the way to make change. So in my experience, having educational materials and communications come out frequently and with a consistent voice from people who people trust is how you can build trust and change behaviors. It takes time, it takes a lot of energy. And I think if we can get 80% of the people in Littleton doing the right thing, pulling in the same direction, we're doing a great job then. And I think even then, some dissenters will come along and for the ride. So if we're making policies based on the right things and the people who trust and consistent messages that are coming out, trying to be helpful, not trying to just shut everything down, because then people will stop listening, but like saying, okay, I totally understand this is really important to you. Here are some ways that we can do this in a safer manner. I guess I've been doing this for the last 7 months among smaller groups of friends and whatnot, but I really think that's the way we have to go. We have to go with an optimistic attitude of we can make change and we can adopt good behaviors. We've already done them in certain situations like the schools and whatnot. And I think that's rubbed off on a number of people, which I think is what you're seeing. And I think if there's a way to get messages into the hands of people who may otherwise not be seeing those messages, it would be great. And I know there's groups in town that aren't seeing them. It's really hard to get information out right now. So happy to be creative. I'm happy to like sit down in the schools and let's talk to some high schoolers, because if there's a way they can think of a way to create a social media present, like push or whatever it is they want to do, then I'm all in for supporting them. And the same for like seniors. If seniors are trying to figure out ways to be social in a way that but because that's important too, to mental health, but in a way that's safer to them. I think we need to talk to the stakeholders to figure out what it is they need, and then design materials that will help educate those groups.
Mike, this is Kevin Davis. I concur with what Katrina is saying 1,000%. When I get to the contact tracing stuff, I'll tell a short story about, the constant drumbeat from myself and a few other people to try to get automated contact tracing apps. It's slowly moving forward. It's one of those things you need to keep doing it, because the tool is going to help. It's just a matter of getting it out there and getting people to start to do it and use it.
Katrina had mentioned the Life Care Center. I think it would be good. We don't really, they don't come under our jurisdiction, like we found out, but it would be good to maybe have them come to a meeting and get an update from them and see what they're planning to do differently.
They're being monitored pretty closely at this point. I think Jim gives a report I think if it's not every week, it's every other week.
I know there's some data on that in the weekly report that comes out too that mentions Life Care Center. So
yeah,
you may have access to things I just haven't looked at yet.
Well, has anybody seen in the communications that have gone out from the Board of Health that are posted not just on our website? For example, would it be worth these are old ideas for spreading information, but the best, shall we say, lists that we've got in town are in the hands of the call them the water department, because most people have town water, get bills, and they have routine mailings. And if we can talk about the water, we can certainly talk about people's health. They're open to it. And the other thing is, I believe there's an email blast list also that I think the town of Littleton has access to, and I think we could approach both of those simultaneously through our administrative office. Right, Janet? Especially if Lisa gets behind it. Let's see if we can, as it were, get those lists and do, shall we say, do the mailings and try that one out.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, Mike. Is there like a reverse 911 or anything like that that we can use when we get to a certain point that's when we get to that point? You know what I mean?
I don't think the Board of Health has ever been in a situation where we're trying to, as it were, help people during a pandemic.
Janet?
Not the last one, right, Mike?
And we won't be the last. That's right.
No, I meant the last pandemic that we were in. All right. Did you guys have more to present?
Yes, ma'am.
We do.
Kevin, did you have a question?
No, I was just asking if Janet had an answer to that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Have an answer on that. I'll have to find out about funds for mailings. That's not something that we've traditionally had, so I'll have to do some looking.
Yeah, let's get it done this week. Let's get it done this week.
Mike, we can't see you, or I can't see you. I hope you're just joking, right?
Nope. I'm not joking.
All right.
So I'm going to cover this section on what we've been exploring in regards to testing and screening options. So just to bring everybody up to speed, when we initially discussed this at the last Board of Health meeting, we would look into possibilities for potential screening of staff and students at the schools. But now we're based on things that I'm going to bring up in a couple of bullet points. We may want to, the board may want to reconsider, broadening that possibly. But of the screening companies that we've been able to get a hold of, there are several rapid tests that are available of different variety, either antigen-based or PCR-based or molecular. Many of the tests that are screens that are being done require CLIA certified facilities to perform the tests. So that's something, again, to consider there. And so that requires having a third party become involved and sampling, processing of the samples and so forth. So as I mentioned, there are several things that the board should I guess, bring into consideration if we were to pursue some sort of screening plan, one of which is target population. So if we were to just look at just the staff and students at each of the 4 schools, that would be one cohort that would, how we could look at. If we were to extend that out to the emergency personnel, so the police staff, fire, that would include more, a bigger pool. If we look at this in terms of some of the frontline workers or other extend this even further. So if we were to include like Donalds or Market Basket or whatnot, that could go, that would make the pool even much bigger. So that's something that the board should, I guess, take into consideration. Testing frequency. So of the companies that have gotten back to us in terms of how we'd want to set this up, this is something that that needs to be thought about in terms of how frequent the testing would be done on the population that's that's being looked at. So ideally, you'd want to have a test performed once a week, depending on, just if you're doing something in the school. In other instances, it may not be as frequent. You may be able to do biweekly or whatnot. And then the other major factor is data handling. So for this, if the Board of Health was to take this on, the Board of Health would then have access to the data and whatnot. So that's something that they would completely own altogether. So depending on how each of these factors come into play will dictate what the overall cost will be, of course. So a smaller group would be a smaller cost, larger group, larger cost and whatnot, and then frequency of testing. So as I mentioned, this would require having samples collected here in town and then subsequently sent off to the labs to have tested. So there is a local CLIA certified lab that's based out of Cambridge that can that samples technically could be couriered over to the facility and then tested based on using their PCR, one of their PCR tests, and then results come back within 24 to 48 hours. So that's a hypothetical scenario that that could be put into play. So it's just something to think about. So next slide, please. So one of the ones, an example of one of the rapid antigen tests that is currently approved by the FDA for emergency use authorization is the Binax Now antigen test. And this uses a nasal swab sampling, and then it gives a test result within 15 to 20 minutes on a card. It contains that will be able to determine whether there's patient is infected or not. So here, this is just an example of something that is slowly being rolled out. We're still waiting to hear back from Abbott itself as to whether or not this has now been expanded into the area. So this is something that ideally would be something that the town could potentially use on a large population because of its ease of use and its and it's relatively cheap. Next slide, please. So this is this TACPath COVID-19 multiplex kit is an example of a PCR-based screen. So this is something there that would absolutely need to be done at a CLIA certified laboratory. And this can accommodate a wide variety of samples from an individual. And here, the turnaround time for this is relatively quick. So within 1 to 2 days, you'd be able to get a positive or negative result from the individual being tested. So this particular test is what's being run at the lab in Cambridge. And for this, this is something that can be done with a larger population, since this is something that's done at a smaller scale. So in this case, they can run up to over 380 samples per kit. So you can envision that if you had a population of 1,000 tests being run over a course of a week, you can get that, they can get this done relatively quickly. Next slide, please. And finally, the other company that we've heard back from is Miramus. And so this is just an example. Again, this is another example of a qPCR based assay, which in this case, instead of testing individual samples, is now testing pooled samples. So from the previous two examples that I've shown, those would be individual tests, whereas this is testing a cohort of 24 samples within a batch. And then the idea here is that for each batch that's being tested, if a positive result comes up, then they can narrow down to the 24 that were in that group. So this is a little different from the previous approach that I mentioned, in that you're testing a pooled cohort as opposed to individual tests, but this will allow you to identify, quickly identify there's somebody positive in this, there's 2 positives in this 24 population that you have to go back and retest to narrow down who those individuals are. So this takes, even though this is a molecular-based kit approach, this is going to take, because it requires numerous retesting to identify the infected individual, this might take a little longer. So again, depending on what the goal of the screening overall screening plan is, this is something that is on the table as well. So I think that's my last slide. So I'll stop here. If there's any questions.
Sure, I got lots of them. Is there anybody else who? Okay, so the advisory group is made of some very knowledgeable folks. So you've heard from our ACE epidemiologist, and you must have heard the concern, not the concerns, but the holes in the Swiss cheese in terms of what we know. So is there a consensus among you about which of these, in the ideal world, which of these tests go to answer a compelling question that would help make certain kinds of decisions? For example, can these tests tell us anything more than what we're already learning about whether or not the increase, the tick up in the number of cases in Littleton is real or not? How real is it? Is it really accelerating? Or is it better to monitor the schools to make sure that we catch a spread before it becomes a spread? I'm not trying to put in the question. What I'm trying to do is match up the technologies you've got here with problem solving. And which problem do we want to get at? And have you folks sort of gathered around and said, okay, this is a worthwhile problem because this is what we have to answer. Even if it just satisfies the epidemiologist, one of the 9 different issues that have been raised.
So Mike, you raised two different, two different questions per se that the screening would address. Ideally, a screening strategy would, if implemented, would be able to identify potentially infected individuals and then thereby preventing them from coming into school and causing a super spreading event or whatnot. So in that case, the testing would be, the rationale for there would be as a preventative measure. In terms of looking at it from the epidemiology, so Katrina, you can, if you want to comment here, feel free to. But I think at that point, the test, if there's already infected individuals within the town itself, the tests are only going to confirm that. So I think the benefit of adopting a screening approach would be more on the preventative side.
Okay.
That is you remember when I said with metrics are a week and a half behind, like we're looking retrospectively when we look at the metrics. This is if we are going to if we are concerned about cases arising in our school and potential spread because of more density and mixing of kids who then bring it home to other people or mix it around town with other people they come in contact to, the preventive measure would be to do testing within the school to give us the prospective look, the closest capture we can to catching it before it gets out of control.
Okay, I'm being tutored here. So the pool testing I'm taking them out, the pool testing methodology, even though it's not FDA approved. Yeah, the pool testing would help us determine if there's a potential going on in a defined population, for example, as in the schools. Is that the idea? Do I have it right?
That's correct.
Okay. So going to your, I guess it was your final slide.
Mm-hmm.
Would someone else jump in with this, Mike Fontanella? Am I treading on your toes here?
No, not at all.
I shouldn't have to ask you. You'd say something anyway. All right. So take a look. Take a look at this. And so this one looks like the one that sort of like gives, what is do we know anything about the false positive, false negative rates for this test?
I don't have that information offhand.
Okay. I've heard more than rumors about this one. This one happens to be useful as long as, and there's 9 or 10 caveats that follow it, and it's okay for the moment. How about cost? Let's say we wanted to do the school,
mm-hmm.
And what would you suggest would be a suitable population size for the schools?
So what do you mean by suitable population size? So
how how many folks do we have to have in our pool to make it informative?
Well, I think at the minimum, you would need to have all the staff and each of the students attending the 2 different cohorts tested. So you're in that case, you're looking at just under 1,000, I believe 1,000 individuals being screened.
Okay. Okay. So assuming we could do this, because then there's the quality increase resolution with smaller pools. I'm reading this, the second last. Okay. So let's just say your number of 1,000. Any idea of what the cost would be if we were doing 1,000 folks for the saliva pool testing?
I will follow up and get back to you on that, because at the time when I spoke with the representative from Miramus, I did not have the number of individuals from the schools. So
Gotcha.
I was not able to
we
get them.
ballparked it quick and dirty, all the students in all the schools, 8-week testing program was like $158,000. Yeah, choke. Go ahead. I know, a lot.
Okay. I somewhere along the line, I believe Watertown got together with a bunch of other school districts or towns and began a testing program. Have you guys seen that or have heard of it?
I just heard of it this week. I haven't followed up on figuring out what they're doing or what tests they're using.
Okay. I don't want to speak about it because it's I think it would be better if someone who has some real knowledge of the tools that they're using can talk to because they're inviting inquiries from other school districts. So I do know that Watertown, the town of Watertown actually is sort of like that's a pioneer, but they started it. And Lisa, did I send you the copy of that one?
Yeah, what was it called? The consortium or something like that?
Yeah. Could you make sure that Katrina and the others get that?
Yep.
I mean, this is like I hate to say it's like a newspaper blurb, and I'm trying to.
So I will say that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say that if you do make contact, if folks from our advisory group, the task force does approach it, it would be a good idea if Lisa, as it were, worked with them, sort of using the imprimatur as the chair of the Board of Health, so that it's a serious inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
We're not messing around, and we may be able to join that consortium. I don't.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So I mean, I just don't know if what they're doing will address the issues that bother us collectively the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because they did complain about they did get what do you call it? Not feedback, but they got criticism because they can't afford. I think they were doing molecular testing, to be perfectly blunt, and they were doing PCRs, and they were not doing enough of them. They were coming in once, and then they go off, and it's expensive. It's been made expensive. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I think what the proposal here you have for pooled samples has a lot of promise for at least addressing some of the issues of concern.
As a Board of Health level, have you heard of any state initiatives for further testing than the current situation? But just curious if the Department of Public Health is considering rolling out any testing for schools.
Well, it could be if we get really deeper in the red, they'll notice us. I mean, I honestly don't know. I have not seen anything. The only towns I'm aware of are the same ones you are aware of, where the population is large and the spread has been proceeding unabated.
Yeah, they're testing a lot in Washington, D.C. now, for some reason.
It just feels like if schools and boards of health could all get together and put political pressure up on the state to say, hey, you want us to be open, but to do that and do that well, we need to have testing. Is there any way that could start can we start building political pressure in a
Tonight
collaborative way to move it up?
Tonight
And with
it's-
contact tracing.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, if we do this, we definitely are in the area of contact tracing. That's for sure. Now, this is a great. It's. I think the cost is going to be too much for Littleton by itself to undertake. So we have to probably start thinking about. Well, not worry about it until we know what the cost could be.
So, Mike, I would like to comment that there's a colleague of Katrina's from Harvard that I've been talking to, and they're also looking into. They're also interested in testing, and they've also spoken with Miramus as well. So it's not only us.
Oh yeah,
that have contacted them. So
Harvard, the town
of Harvard,
town
of Harvard,
public schools.
Our neighbors.
Sure.
Should we keep going? I think John's done, right?
I'm done.
Mike Fontanella, does the idea of having pool testing in the schools make sense to you or appeals to you? Do you see any legal or reaction to it that would make it difficult to do, other than money?
Right. Other than money. I mean, I don't feel qualified as a layperson to really be able to parse through all of the pros and cons of testing. I've done enough reading in the general media to confuse myself, but it doesn't seem like there is a wide consensus on exactly how to do this the right way. So even if it was economically feasible, I don't think there's a lot of consensus out there. And without consensus, I'm not quite sure how the community, specifically the school community and the parents, would receive this. I'm certainly interested in listening and hearing more. And if a place like Watertown is already going down that road, it would be interesting to see what they thought and how it worked out. I have two sons at college. They are going through this. They are being tested week by week. They're doing the pool testing, all this kind of stuff. But they're living in more of a bubble than we would be asking our families to live in. You know, they share the same dorms, obviously, eating spaces, workout spaces, classroom. So I'm not 100% sure that it's truly benefiting them, even in that more specific and grouping. So I'm skeptical, but certainly willing to continue to listen and be educated. And I think Katrina's right in terms of, like, we can't do this ourselves. I don't think there has to be a groundswell, both from the political pressure aspect of it, but also from a acceptance level of what's going to work best for public school systems and municipalities if they're going to try to do something like this. And I think we have a long way to go. I think it's so long a way to go that I hopefully will be well past this, and we should be thinking about this for the next time. And see if we can be much better positioned to implement something like this if we have to down the road.
All right, great. Should we continue? Any more?
And then, Mike, to your point, I do appreciate you keeping an open mind and a skeptical mind. To be honest, that's the right approach, in my opinion. I mean, you're right. There is no great consensus. But consensus, I think, is building, depending back to Mike Zeldin's point around what type of, what is it that you're actually asking to do? You know, if you're looking for a really high fidelity answer for a couple of individuals, you're going to want a PCR-based test. You're going to want to know what whether there was RNA in that individual from the virus. If you're looking for large-scale screening of larger populations and you can handle some false positives, then you might be fine going with the antigen test, which just looks for protein from the actual virus, and it's very cheap. It's the $5 test. It takes 15 minutes. You read it on your phone, and it's probably the way it'd be one of. I think it's something that I think we've been gravitating toward, though we still need to get more information. But in terms of like large scale surveillance, town-wide and or school-wide, I think that that's where the consensus is building for something like that, so that it's not outrageously expensive. It gives you a really good handle and a jump start to the point of having a crystal ball. We're never going to have that, but I think having that type of large scale screening and surveillance would be the closest thing we could hope for at this point. So I'll just jump in. I'm going to just for the next couple of slides talk about aerosols so quickly, since I know it's old news, but there is an important consideration with respect to aerosols. I populated a couple of slides. I'm not going to really read them verbatim. They're mostly just for people to have. This first slide is taken right off of the CDC's website, which, as we've already discussed, they had it, then they took it down, and then they rehosted it. And it just basically kind of shows, you know what, there is mounting evidence to suggest that aerosol transmission is a thing. And the reason I'm bringing it up at all and the impact it may have on our community really stems from some policies that are their policy from the state, their policy from for our schools. And we may need to kind of catch up, be progressive with respect to our knowledge of the science and rectify where we are with the policies. And in particular, kind of the notification of people who have been exposed to others that are within 6 feet for 15 minutes. That is really based off of droplet transmission and fomite transmission. And so I just wanted to bring this up as a point of conversation so that we could discuss or put the information to you to discuss whether or not there should be further communications with people that may have been exposed to a potential positive case in any kind of situation where they have where they're in an enclosed environment where there could be aerosol transmission. I can go into the details in glorious detail if anybody wants about like how many micrometers does a droplet have, how long does it stay in the air, and how, what are all the tests that, have been collected over time in order to show and prove aerosol transmission. What does that mean? How long does it linger? But I doubt at 9:27 p.m. after 2.5 hours, anybody's that interested. But I do want to put it out there that if anybody wants to dig into those details, I'm happy to connect with you offline and we can go through it. The second slide, if you go to the second slide, is again, it's just to have information to you. I found this review. It's not in like the best journal in the world, but it does actually cover pretty much everything that's ever been published on aerosol transmission. And so it's a really good resource if you just wanted to go through and see what did they find through epidemiology and what did they find through human ACE2 transgenic mice that they infected and put in different cages. And then they, to see if there was actual aerosol transmission and so on. So anybody who wants to get really geeky on the aerosol transmission, please, by all means, contact me on that. And then also just really putting this out there and populating this information to reconsider what, people that are truly potentially exposed, if there's a positive, to get away from kind of the antiquated 6 feet for 15 minutes that was really stemming from droplet transmission, which we all know is not now the only primary mode of transmission. Anybody have any questions on that?
How would you convey this to the public?
Convey that this is a thing, or convey that that we should revisit the policy? What
action would you recommend to the public?
I would recommend, revisiting one specific policy, and that is that for our school notification system, it's people are not notified unless their child has been sitting within 6 feet of somebody for more than 15 minutes. And so I would revise that to just notify the entire classroom if there was a positive. That's all. And it doesn't mean that they don't go to school. It's just in terms of transparency. Now that we know that this can potentially be transmitted through aerosol, something that may be worth revisiting just that one policy.
So I might add to that is that another way we could kind of address this. So contact tracing has kind of, the more recent stuff out of our state is looking at household transmission. So for example, me and my family, if one of us is exposed and seeking testing, we all share the same air, we all share the same space, we're on close contact. So our family is technically exposed. So another way to think about closing a gap in the current state policies that the schools and others are following is to ask people who have been notified that they're exposed and been told to quarantine to kids are like the secondary contacts in that situation. So if I am exposed and I'm seeking testing, my kids are secondary contacts, they can go to school. But what we could consider doing is asking families to keep those kids home until the first person is cleared from having COVID. They can still go remote school, they could do everything, but the line of transmission is strong that within a family household, it's not just going to be one person sick unless that person is really able to isolate away from the rest of their family, which is not usual when you have young kids you have to care for.
And there's a lot of research out there that shows, you know, from early onset of the disease and other research that's come out that has shown through contact tracing that the intact family transmission is really high, that the sharing of those close quarter spaces is actually, it's like a 12x or a 15x increase in your chance of getting it.
Yeah, and
that's
so,
exactly true.
Yeah, and so implementing two changes to the policy could really get us out of potentially sticky situations, considering the length of time it does take for the contact tracing to happen and in our lags. Just the notification if there's a positive in the class, and then holding kids to remote learning while a primary contact is awaiting a negative test if there's a known exposure.
Mike Fontanella, there was something this week about, I think it was Amy Kaz, she contacted Dr. Clunchy
Yep.
about something like that.
Yep. Yeah. These are all good ideas, and none of them on the face of it is certainly unreasonable to certainly consider. The good news is that we haven't had to implement those protocols yet because we haven't had any positive cases. In terms of like the suggestion that Katrina just made, if you're a family where you need to be concerned for some period of time, to be cautious and conservative, the education aspect of it about what good behaviors are and what poor behaviors are, because we can ask for that, but we can't, there's no way we can control it. We would only know after the fact. And we had one potential scenario like that unfolded at one of our schools last week. So I think those are all good ideas, and I think those types of ideas that are coming through a group like this is why this is beneficial. We certainly don't feel from a school committee perspective or a school administration perspective that any of the policies we have are set in stone. We're looking for more guidance. We're looking for more good ideas, and we're not doing it in isolation. DESE and we'll be revisiting and reissuing their guidelines. They already have throughout the summer and even after the schools open. So these are all things that we would be more than happy to continue to dialogue about.
Great. All right, and we have one more segment about contact tracing, Kevin.
Yes. Kevin Davis.
We actually have fun on the group when there's two Kevins on the phone, because we have to, Kevin and I say Kevin Baker and I actually have to pay attention to where the context is for the thing. So it's kind of interesting. Okay. Contact tracing. So when this all started off, a bunch of geeky people out in a bunch of different places came together and said, hey, wouldn't it be great if everybody that has one of these things could possibly use it to do some sort of contact tracing? And a bunch of us got together and said, yeah, that'd be really cool. Why don't we use some sort of sensor that's available on this? And the sensor that came popped up to the top was Bluetooth. So this very headset that I'm using is using Bluetooth to talk to my laptop. And so there's a bit of technology that goes into that. And so Google and Apple got together, not as competitors, but as a symbiotic relationship, and said that they need to put together some sort of exposure notification. So the Google Apple exposure notification, since they're the two main OSs out there, you've got Android from Google and iOS from Apple that go out there. And then, so this was put out in the February, March timeframe, and it uses some technology that was from MIT, and there's some other technology that's currently in the phones. And then about a month ago, they came out with a Google Apple Exposure Notification Express, and I'll get into what that is. But today, all the Google Apple Notification Express is available today on every iOS device that's 13.7 and greater. So if you actually go and look at your phones, you can go to your settings, and in your settings, if you're on 13.7 or higher, you'll actually see something in the settings about a third of the way down. It says exposure notifications, and it's sitting on your phone. Now, the technology is ready to go and ready to be turned on, and it's a tool. It is not a substitute for the contact tracing that we have currently in place. It is something that is there. Android devices from Android 6 and up will be able to also access the same thing, and is currently in their operating systems as well. So that's so 92% of all iOS devices and 88% of all Android devices have that ability to do that. So currently, unfortunately, Massachusetts to date has not released a Gain app or enabled Gain X. So the way that the technology works is that every country gets a single license unless the country says that it can go to each of the states or whatever health authorities that are out there, however they want to divide it up. So the United States said that every health authority in the states are going to control this. So every state gets the license to the keys to turn this on. So Massachusetts is just working with, I'm sure is out there working with each of the individuals to go get this turned on. But to date, 15 states have released an app or are enabling the GainX technology. Unfortunately, none in New England yet. So talking about pushing up and out the messaging that we need to do from a political will, this is huge. Really, the reason why this is there is, as I said before, it's another tool that will help us in contact tracing. The way that these apps work is that you turn it on, and it uses privacy protecting technology that exchanges cryptographic keys between phones. So when you get this device next to another device, and say in a classroom setting in like a high school or maybe a high school party or something else, you will then be able to exchange this key information. And that key information will allow people, if they do test positive, say we do turn on all of this testing inside the schools, it will help us enable us to go and start to track down those individuals that have been within that distance that the state has set up. So again, they do use privacy protecting technology. It's called PACT is the actual name of it. And what's also interesting is that a lot of people are really weary or leery of those things. Well, let me tell you something. This technology to release an app or actually to use the Express stuff takes additional review by Google and Apple to release those apps to make sure that they don't have any of this technology, location technology built in. Because turning this on, all of a sudden you could create something that would become some sort of, oh, this person was standing next to this person, and we don't want that. But what's interesting is that when you talk to people about this, remember how we're talking about messaging and things like that, you say, hey, do you have Facebook on your phone? Do you have Google Maps on your phone? Do you have WhatsApp on your phone? Do you have WeChat? Any one of those things? Those technologies actually share your location more frequently than this technology, because this technology is privacy protecting. So for example, if you ever want to go find out where you were in the last month, you can go into Google and say, where was I? And it will show you all of those fun things. So one of the other things I would strongly suggest is when the state does turn on this, is that the Littleton Board of Health should volunteer with other state agencies to do the beta testing for the Google Exposure Express notification. We're a small town. If we had this tool and we had the testing turned on, and because our high schools are more mobile, our middle school is more mobile. I'm not saying every middle school student has a phone or a device, but those are where the two mobile devices are there. Also, our frontline workers, our fire and police people, as well as some of the frontline and essential workers over at Donnellan's and Market Basket could start to use this technology, because if somebody comes through their checkout line and they are exposed, they could then, say, oh, okay, you may have had an exposure. Yeah, you had this plastic thing up to keep some of the droplets away, but you may have been in contact with someone long enough that you might want to go get a test. Those are the kind of things, and those are the kind of tools that are really going to start to help and work through these situations. Now, I can talk for hours on this because I've been dealing with this technology now for probably close to 8 months. Maybe actually it's October now. So is it 8 months? It's 9 months. So, we can talk more about this. There's a lot of work going into right now with people doing AI and ML modeling on how people walk and work and how to set up the correct servers and what values need to be done for each of the state boards of health. So there's some really interesting work going in that as well.
Great. I think a little bit more information would be over our heads, Kevin, but that's really, while you were talking, I even tried to do it on my phone, and yeah, it says we're not allowed to do it. So is that something that you can keep on top of and let us know when we will be?
So the great thing that we want to do is I want to author a letter together and give it to Kevin Baker. Kevin Baker has a contact that he was working with by the name of Michael Hugo. And what we want to do is probably put a letter together with that and say, hey, these are the things that the state needs to kind of go off and do that. But yeah, that's something that I'm going to keep a close ear to ground on and try to figure out what those things are.
So you identified the choke point, the rate limiting step at the state?
Michael Hugo is the he's the contact at the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards that, Kevin Davis and I were speaking about, well, let's get in touch with Air, let's get in touch with Westford, let's get in touch with Concord. And it's like, why even play small ball? Let's just talk to the state and have him put it out in his newsletter and shout it from the hills and try and get this thing done.
Yeah, just to augment your effort, can I suggest that you folks get in touch with with both our Senate representative to the state legislature and the representative to the House?
Senator Eldridge.
Already have.
And
I've sent them letters personally.
No, you got to do more than send letters.
I've called.
We can send letters.
Oh, okay. All right.
Send postcards.
Would it be better if maybe something from the Board of Health? I don't know what you guys want to do.
I definitely think if the Board of Health brings a consensus that that this is something that we would like to participate in, and that we think it'd be very good for contact tracing. But I want to make sure I understand what you're sort of in your presentation. I got the impression that we have to have a testing program. Is that correct?
No, absolutely not.
That's got to be clear to everyone because this may take a different priority in how we expend ourselves. Yep. So
this is one of those things where if we, again, I work with Kevin Baker and get that letter written and we get that sent out, that this is one of those things that comes for free from a personal perspective and from a town perspective. From a state level perspective, there are costs that they're going to have to do. However, to set up one of these servers and the technology that's there, we're talking, Google has done some math and stuff like that and published it. It's less than $50,000 for the state to do this for the year for the entire population of the state. So it's cheap. It's another tool in the tool belt. The state is correct in that they are looking at it and evaluating it slowly, and they're trying to figure out how to implement it. It is something that other state that they want to get right, because if they get it wrong, it could take that tool and make it null and void. So it's because if you look at what's happened, many countries have already actually done this. Switzerland has taken the lead with this technology and implemented it all throughout Switzerland, and they have had wide success with this. Whereas the UK rolled out their first one and it fell flat on its face. It wasn't using GAIN. And then now they're re-rolling out a new one, and the population is saying, well, you did it once, why do we have to do it again? So the state is trying to get it and do it right the first time. There have been 15 states that have looked at this, so it is starting to gain some traction. And the fact that it's included in your operating system on your device already makes it a lot easier. You just have to turn it on. And you're right, Lisa, it's not on yet.
Yeah. The other thing that is kind of interesting too is because the kids are, you want to make this emphasize to the kids how it's spread. If they have it on their phone and they have their phones all the time, they're going to see it and they're going to say, "Oh my God, look at what just happened." So
yeah. Yep. And
You got the right
there's also,
audience.
right. And there's also been a lot of thought about that already, because one of the things that you do is you say, I have to report my positive test case. There's also a verification step on the backside that when you enter in that it correlates to the actual tests that have been positive and sent out. So you just can't enter a false positive and then you spread panic throughout everywhere. There's actually been a lot of thought put into this to make sure that it is privacy protected, but also making sure that the right information gets verified and validated.
Great. Lots of information.
Yes.
All right.
I think this might be back to me. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to go in the first two bullets here. There's a few things, much like writing the letter for the contact tracing app that you guys just talked about. But I do think from our perspective, the Board of Health adopting CDC Halloween guidelines and writing a letter to send out to the community would be useful, depending on how your discussions go. And then one thing in terms of health metrics that would really help the schools and also our local community would be to, if you as a board could contact the MPHA, and specifically I was told the assistant commissioner for the local Board of Health to request the individual test positivity metrics and to break that age group from 0 to 19 into smaller groups. That would really be useful for our decision making. It would help give us more information that we could actually use. So I would love to write a letter. I can help you write a letter for that, but that has to go directly up your chain through, I'm sure Jim Gareffi could give us some advice on how to get it there.
I specifically asked Jim to extract out of the data as soon as possible the positive, the number of positive tests divided by the number of people tested. And he indicated the level of labor he would have to do.
Yeah, I don't think this is a system we can really easily and readily use Maven for. Like Maven's, I'm not as familiar as Maven as I would like to be, but I think it would be a lot of work for Jim. However, my contacts within the higher level of the state's things specifically said that if we want different metrics reported on that weekly report, we need to get in touch with the assistant commissioner for the local boards of health to say, hey, if we can get these metrics, it would be really useful for us. So
who is that? Who is that assistant commissioner?
There's a new one just appointed. I can try to figure out how, but it should be knowable to you guys. We can find out. Yeah, it's public. So. So those two things would help me with the metrics.
And then I just had one question for Mr. Fontanella. Does the school system have an electronic record system for absenteeism and sort of keeping track of who's out, who's in, what's moving where as far as the staff and students go?
Or specific to COVID or just like absenteeism?
No, in general. Every day.
Right. I don't know, actually. I can find out. I know we track it because we have to report on it to the state. And I don't
the only reason I ask is because there are certain sort of electronic systems, spreadsheets, things like that integrate better with newer COVID technologies that we might be able to leverage down the road if we have to.
Oh, okay.
So we're just trying to figure out
right.
that data get written down on an index card and filed, or
yeah, my guess is they don't anymore, but I don't actually know. And even even if I assume that it was electronic, it would be better to know exactly what is it? Is it a proprietary software system that they then have to do like a data extraction from, or is it something as simple as a spreadsheet that can be made available? So we can check on that.
Yeah, I mean, our goal, our goal here is to just help keep things open, keep things running as long as we can in this situation we're in. We're trying to be teammates here, trying to work together. So whatever we can do to help you, let us know.
Yep.
That's about all I have to say. But
Okay.
I'd love to know about that system so we can
Yeah.
sort of try and leverage
check
that and gain some knowledge.
Okay, I'll check on that.
All right. With that, I think we're going to move along. Thank you guys so much for all that very interesting and important information. Mike, can you stay on while we talk about the COVID update, including the Halloween recommendations?
Me,
Just in
Mike?
case- Mike Fontanella, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Just in case we need to use, I think we'd like to use the schools somehow to translate or get information out to them.
Yep, absolutely. I'm here.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to go on to administrative. Actually, Janet, no hands raised. Guess it's a little too late.
I don't see any hands raised.
He's sleeping.
All right. So I'll just read Jim's notes for the COVID update about reopening Massachusetts. There's been a number of changes in the reopening plan for the state. Listed below are some brief summaries of the changes in the various workplace safety standards. Retail stores, fitting rooms can be open now. Restaurants increased to no more than 10 people seated as a party. The bar areas can be used for dining with modifications. Following changes are allowed in lower risk communities, which I guess are we no longer lower risk? Is that what red means as of today? So libraries up to 50% of their capacities, gyms and fitness centers, 50% capacity, movie theaters, 50% capacity, up to a maximum of 250 seats in any theater. Outdoor at venues and public places, up to 100 people, with the notification to the Board of Health required 1 week prior, time, date, place of the event, name of the organizer, anticipated attendance, and other information that was reasonably requested by the board. Some of the changes the governor has announced are tied to the risk level in each community. The lower risk communities are defined as cities and towns that have not been designated in red category in any of the last 3 weekly Department of Public Health weekly reports. It says, click here to see the list of communities not designated as lower risk communities. Lower risk communities allowed to go to phase 3 of step 2, and generally the changes allow additional amenities and increase in the occupancies with businesses in the state. COVID-19 cases counts in schools. Our community nurse manager reviews the positive cases reported to this office and works closely with the school nurses in your community. One of the metrics schools use to make decisions in the instructional model they will use is the community level data map. This map shows each Massachusetts city and town designated as a higher risk, moderate risk, or lower risk community. Each risk level is based on an average daily COVID-19 cases per 100,000 residents, as indicated in the COVID Weekly 19 Public Health Report. And on a couple of occasions, I've been asked to comment on reported cases in town as that might affect the schools, and I've provided general guidance from reviewing the contact tracing notes. The reviews have not revealed an obvious connection to the schools, and this review has limitations. He says, this is all Jim Gareffi. I do not know any of the familial relationships of the cases and the quality of information provided by the person testing positive during the contact tracing. So I guess those.
I have a quick, just for clarification, the definition of being in any, basically being red or any other color than green or colorless, is it 3 weeks, 1 week, or just do we need one? I'm trying to understand the changes that have been made. This is the paragraph right below the asterisks. It says some of the where it says some of the changes.
Yep.
Okay. Lower risk communities are defined as cities and towns that have not been designated in the red category in any of the last 3 weekly department reports.
Can I add in here? I got unmuted, I guess. So Littleton being red, this is the first week we've been in the red. So we are not a high-risk community at this point. If we continue to be in the red for 2 weeks, then yes, that will impact the next 2 weeks, that will impact our status as a not low risk community. So at this point in time, my understanding is that businesses could open for phase 3, part 2.
Okay. So the next question is, let's say that at this point, given the success the schools have had and their parents and the adults who've been very cooperative in making sure they can go back to work while their kids are in school, do we have the ability, in spite of Mr. Baker's optimism, to ask or say we would like to delay certain of these things, not all of them, but certainly these things, pending future developments in the next week or two? I'm just going to put that as, I'm not in favor of anything. I'm just want to check the temperature of our group here.
Optimism.
What that means.
You repeat your question, Mike?
Sure. What I'm asking is, are we bound to the guidelines that were outlined here? In other words, let's say that we now want to increase in the 1 or 2 or 3 restaurants that can now increase to 10 people per table indoors. Okay. And in view of our assessment of the situation today, not 2 weeks from now, are we allowed as a Board of Health to say, hold off, wait another 2 weeks?
Have you read the Mass General Law?
I have read the Mass General Law. I want to find out what the temperament here is to exercise it. That's all, so we know what we're getting into. Why deal with hypotheticals?
All right, I'm just wondering.
And that's what, and that's why I was interested in would this be, in other words, when is it too early to shall we say go slow?
Is it going to take until we pull the trigger on something? Yeah, take the temperature.
Okay, I guess it's late or nobody cares. Okay. It's okay. It's all right.
We're talking about Halloween and trick or treating. I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for.
Same idea. Same idea.
Know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What does Katrina think? She's still on here. We got her up.
What do I think, whether the Board of Health can take additional actions?
No. Whether what the threshold is for like really, really drop dead. How long do we need to be in red before we like take significant precautions? And
I think, Kevin, I think he means how are we going to take? Are we going to disregard what Baker says we can do and just say no, we can't do it?
Well, we're not going to disregard it. We're just going to activate
make our own rules
to, get to our own destiny here.
So I am unaware of what guidelines and what you guys work with as a Board of Health to take extra precautions beyond what the state puts out there. It's my understanding that you might be able to, but in terms of schools and whatnot, I think because Littleton is small, there's a potential to oscillate for a little bit between red and yellow. So a couple of weeks, next week will be telling. The week after will put us in the not in the high risk community category. I'm not sure I can answer your question, to be honest.
Mike Zeldin, do you think we want to meet again maybe next Thursday after the numbers come out?
Yeah, just to survey it. I'm not interested in dialing anything back for no reason other than, we're a small town and it doesn't take much for it to kick us into another category. I guess I just don't want to do anything that jeopardizes the success so far. And just to repeat, have as many kids in school as possible or working remotely and their parents can go to work. That's a big deal.
Right. Yeah. So I guess not right now.
Yeah. So Halloween, back to Halloween. Yes, let's do Halloween. Agreed.
All right. So I guess Governor Baker has decided that trick-or-treating should continue. with all kinds of recommendations from the CDC, because the alternative would be parties and lots of potential for transmission. So I think that we're going to go ahead. Oh, if we shouldn't have this discussion, I'm thinking that we should go ahead with trick-or-treating, with the recommendations from the CDC and the state. But I also want to temper that with the numbers. I mean, today's what? But today's the 14th. There's 15 more days for until Halloween, and things.
Let's have another meeting next week and figure it out when the numbers come out on Thursday. I think you're right on point there with that.
I think a lot of people, I've heard from a few people that they want to know what we're thinking of right now. And I think that it's fine if parents, like Matt Pinard was saying, you know, the parents are keeping an eye on things. The parents, you know, are wiping down the candy when it comes home. Up to, or I think somebody said that you could maybe leave it for 48 hours and maybe the virus, I don't know, Mike Zeldin, you probably know more than I do.
Louise had a good video about wiping down your grocery before they.
Yeah.
Way back when.
Yeah, way back.
But, you know, the parents need to, you know, make sure that their kids aren't eating the candy as they're trick-or-treating. They might want to leave it alone for a couple of days or wipe it down. But I think there's a risk in the next 15 days that our numbers might go up. And if we say, you know, that we should have it, but let's keep an eye to the sky kind of thing and see what the numbers look like closer to the 31st. Or we can meet next Thursday after the
numbers come out. I think that's the smartest thing. Let's
Okay.
meet next week, next Thursday after the numbers come out, and we'll revisit this and not be as long. And
yeah, just have a.
Could we use this as a learning moment, and that is to release the current guidance from the CDC and the state, and include in the edited version of it right at the top that in view of the someone can come up with gentler language in view of the slight increase in the number of cases in town, the Board of Health reserves the right to, you know, reverse or change the elements of this guidance regarding Halloween.
I think notifying everybody that we are now in the red for the first week should definitely be mentioned, Mike.
That's the advantage of putting this out, to make it clear to especially a very important part of our community what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So Mike Fontanella, I was wondering, you guys have, and Louise, sorry, you haven't said anything. You're all set with all.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. I would say it if I didn't, don't worry.
Mike Fontanella, is there a way that we can use the schools to get this message through? You guys have like weekly principals letters or something like that I saw, or is it?
We do, and we have robocall, and we have email notification lists, and we would be more than happy to put all of that at any messaging that you guys want to put out. Obviously, this is something that affects our particular community or stakeholders more than other groups. So yeah, we would definitely be happy to do that. You just need to get the messaging to Dr. Clenchy, and he will forward it out to the principals, and it will go out all through all our various communication means.
How soon do we need to get that to you so that we can get that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't get newsletters anymore, so I'm not on that distribution list. I assume they go out on Fridays, but I would actually think that we're more responsive, we're more dynamic. It's not like a once a week thing anymore. We can send out messages anytime via our email lists and robocalls. So anytime you want to send it, we will facilitate the distribution of it right then and there.
All right, Janet, is that something that you can help us with this week?
Setting up the meeting?
No, just setting up the CDC guidelines with the heading that because the town is red now, we reserve the right to change our minds closer, depending on what the numbers look like. Is that a yes?
Yes, I'll draft something up and shoot it to you tomorrow.
Awesome. Great. All right, and send it to Dr. Clenchey, Mike?
So if we send it out this week, and then we can say in it that, we'll be looking at the numbers Thursday
Yeah, next Thursday. Well,
we'll be meeting on Thursday to discuss the numbers, or?
yeah, I mean, still the 22nd is next Thursday. It's still a little more than a week before Halloween, so we
Right,
might be doing this for the next 2 weeks
right.
because we'll meet again on the 28th.
Yeah, I think Halloween's gonna happen. Yeah, it's gonna come. And it's gonna be fine. People are gonna get candy. We just need to just do it in a smart way, and we just need to figure that out. So
Proud of you, Kevin.
yeah.
But I think Kevin, if Halloween happens to be on the third red week, then we should really be smarter than that.
Well, that's fine. Go throw some candy in your front yard.
No, my light's going off. No lights.
Have your kids go find it, on their own, and it's great.
All right.
I
Well, we
think
can
that, I'm just saying that the value of us working with the schools in a very public way, providing guidance in a letter that comes with us plus the principals and the superintendent is a way of opening up a very important communication channel to the public, a very important segment of the population.
Right.
Especially, in view of the situation.
Exactly. And it's one more, as you say, Mike, learning moment.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have Janet write out a statement, and then we'll review the numbers on the 22nd, and then maybe again on the 28th.
And you will review what she prepares?
Yeah, and I'll send it
Please.
to all
Yeah.
you guys so
Yeah.
anybody can make
Yeah.
reviews.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Same for the letter that, Kevin, what were you gonna let me, I'm sorry, I was tired. A letter that you're gonna write with Katrina, maybe?
Kevin Davis.
Yeah, the
Kevin
two
and Kevin are
Kevins.
gonna write.
Yeah.
Before that gets sent out, I would like us all to discuss.
Yeah, we meet every Wednesday at 1, so I'll try and get that to you guys before we meet. It'll be quick.
Maybe for next Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is next Thursday's meeting going to be at 7?
Is that Janet? I can meet anytime after 5:30 on the 22nd.
I'm good for 7.
Yeah, me too.
7? Okay. Janet, can we do the 7 o'clock on the 22nd?
Okay.
I think it'll be quick, right?
Yeah. It's just like reviewing data, and then
Yeah, it'll just be the data meeting.
we'll see if Katrina can grace us with her presence. Interpret.
All right, great.
Letting me know I'm going to have to just double check with LCTV because the school committee meets at 7. So I just have to make sure they have coverage
Okay.
Tuesday.
Like I said, I can be here.
I can do earlier.
Yeah, I can do anytime after 5:30 if you want to just do something quick. All right. Great. I think we can let Mike, unless anybody have their hands up, Janet?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. No hands made. Sorry, no hands raised.
All right.
So just one last, Mr. Fontanella, before you go.
He might have already left.
If he's gone, yeah.
Nope, here he is.
Yep. Just based on that letter that was sent over, and you said you wanted to hold off on sending any data to the COVID advisory team. Are you willing now to share that data with the COVID advisory team based on what you know now?
Am I back on? I think I got kicked out.
Yeah. You're
Okay. All right. we're happy to consider, supporting it. We need to know the context, Kevin, of how it's going to be used, how the reporting is going to be done, the timing, the resource requirements on our part to provide the data, how often, things like that. So getting those details worked out and understanding that, we'll figure it out what we think we can do.
So you're willing to share the data based on what you know now? I mean, we went through an in-depth description of how the COVID advisory team is sort of trying to help.
Yeah, but he wants to know what you're going to use it for and how.
Right, and there were no specific requests about specific types of data from in this presentation that was made tonight. So let's start a dialogue and see what you guys are thinking about, and we'll figure out how we can do it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Great job. 0 cases in school. That's awesome.
That's not nothing I've done.
Yeah, right.
Well, we just congratulate ourselves for that. So. All right. Next up for administrative matters, revise of the Littleton Board of Health mission statement. Did you guys get a chance to read all that? From our clerk, Mr. Zeldin?
I did. That was well written.
Very well written. Can't find it now.
I'm stunned.
There it is. Should we vote on it or just read it? Do you guys want to approve it, or you want me to read it out loud?
I would love for Gino to be able to read it.
I'm sorry?
I'd love for Gino to read it. Actually,
I'd love it if Gino would show up. Period.
Yeah, let's read it now.
Is he all right? Did anybody check in with him?
He stopped in the office yesterday and told me he would be here tonight.
All right. Louise, do you want to read it?
I will, but I can't find it right now. I'm still looking for it.
I have it in front of me. I'll read it. Littleton Board of Health mission statement. The mission of the Littleton Board of Health is to provide guidance and assistance to all Littleton residents, Littleton businesses, and property owners to assure the maintenance of public health. The Littleton Board of Health fulfills its roles by A, supporting and enforcing compliance with certain regulations, state and local, regarding septic systems, privately owned wells, public health requirements as applies to schools and food establishments and other areas of its jurisdiction as specified by state and town law and regulations. B, providing health information to the public that is collected and vetted by local, state, and federal health experts and officials. And C, holding public hearings regarding A, request for variances from and compliance to existing regulations, and B, propose new or additional regulations intended to protect public health. I think it's great. I haven't
Very
read
good. I like it.
We need Gino. I think we should just. Can we do a vote when Gino's here?
Why?
I love it. I think it reads very well. I'm just like a little uncomfortable without Gino here because he's like the godfather of the Board of Health. You know.
Yeah, that's all the reason that's one of the reasons that we're changing it. That's the reason we're changing the website.
You don't want to mess with that sort of thing, though. You know? You might end up with a horse's head in your bed. So that might be a bad thing.
I think we have a majority here, Kevin.
We
so,
do. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mike worked.
It reads very well. I would make a motion to approve that and adopt that in a heartbeat.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
And roll call Kevin.
Kevin Baker, yes.
Louise Nichols.
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin.
Mike Zeldin, yes.
And Lisa Flanagan, yes. So Janet, can you get that over to who does the town website?
I do that portion, so I can upload that tomorrow.
Awesome.
And also take away what's up there now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Edit that. All right. Assessment of current resources to implement Board of Health missions.
I think we should continue that.
Our ratings are dropping like a rock here. I'm just looking at the attendees and the people are just dropping off like crazy.
Can we discuss this at another meeting, Mike?
I think we should continue that till next time.
I wasn't looking for a discussion. I was just planting the seed to make sure that people understood what we're talking about here.
Yep.
That's all. Because it's, I tried to be general, or when I submitted the idea.
I loved everything you submitted. I thought it was great. I think I'm very excited about digging into all this and trying to figure out how we can maximize.
Right. We have until spring. We have until spring town meeting to implement, to even get to square one. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands what this is about. I'm not trying to get the merits of it, but I think I'll just simply say tonight was an example of raising. This has nothing to do with Jim. It just raised an example is, do we have the resources where a key part of our operation, which is a professional health officer, is absent from a meeting in which the town shifted into red? This is not on him. I understand why he's not here.
Yeah, he's busy. That's all.
Correct. So now you understand what I'm asking is, do we have is our current capacity in all dimensions sufficient for us to achieve our mission? Or is the town gotten large enough and complex enough where we need something different, period?
We're city now, Mike.
Okay, no discussion. I'm just understanding what this is really about.
I get it.
We'll table that discussion.
Absolutely.
Okay. Authorization for communication by the chair. Mike, do you want to give us an example? Is this like
tonight? Yeah, like tonight. Yeah.
Let me read it. The Board of Health authorizes the chair to prepare, edit, and communicate via various channels to the public guidance documents and suggested procedures intended to protect public health, including mitigation measures, without seeking review and agreement from the board, when the release of such information will have a benefit before the next scheduled meeting of the Board of Health. Such materials must be based on or be consistent with documents released by any or all of the following: a CDC, a CDC, B, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and 6, Littleton Health Officer.
Too much power for the chair. Sorry, Lisa. It's too much.
Apologize. I think, but what he's saying is that, sometimes some of these things happen.
Yeah, it happens, but that we still have a board.
I'm not looking for this, Kevin. I'm not looking for this.
I know you're not. I'm just speaking my mind.
Yeah. So you want to table it and discuss it again another time?
I think.
I'm good with it.
Ex-chair, maybe future chair. We'll see. Yeah.
I think we're getting to the point where we are so archaic that we have to wait a week or 2 weeks to go through the process of releasing publicly available information under our seal. For example, I think tonight's the release of the information about Halloween did not require a vote from us at all. I don't know if you noticed that.
No.
Because, and all that has to do with providing, it's not anything and everything. It has to be something related to health and has its source in the CDC or the state. So the boundaries for this are rather, shall we say, clearly defined.
I get that.
To save time.
We're a board, and we can take the direction of the CDC and the DPH, but when it comes down to it, there's 5 people on this board, and the chair has a lot of power. And
to release a letter of information or notice.
Right, it's not making any decisions on, and again, Kevin,
I
I'm
agree
not.
what you just said. I mean, we'll table it till the next time, but I mean, it's basically giving the chair all the power of the Board of Health to basically speak on behalf of the board and to release a decision, and that's not.
No, it's not decisions, it's guidance. It's for public health.
Which is not okay. So yeah, hey, it's 10:21. What do you want to do?
I guess moving to the 21st century.
That's cool. I'm here.
All right, so we'll table that for, put that on another. Correspondence, anybody have any correspondence? I had,
My wife is texting me to stop being a jerk right now. So that means we need to end this meeting and I need to go talk to her.
the only correspondence I have is from Capri Starbucks, and I think Janet, you said that Jim may have already taken care of this because that was dated October 1st.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And there was some other things that we got today, but I think we're going to be talking about them next time. You said that the Pickard Lane was not an issue for us at the moment.
The septic thing on that?
Jim said he was out to speak with the owners. He believes it's a failed system and it just happened to be coincidental that it's happened within a month after the neighbors.
All their other ones. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sucks. And what about the mining operation down there? I never got an invite to go down and talk to Jim about that. On King Street. Is there an update, Janet?
Yeah, I know that Joe and Jim were going down. I don't know the date and I have not been given any information, so I'll have to find out.
Yeah, because I got a really, really disturbing letter from one of the residents about the release of gases and radon and all that stuff. I don't know if you guys got that. But
Can you share it with us?
You have that in the correspondence, Kevin?
No, she just texted me. Would you mind emailing Jim, Janet, to just remind me to go meet him down there?
Yep. Got it on my list.
And so we had the Pickard Lane, and then there was a letter from Amy Tez, but I think
We talked about that.
Dr. Clenchey's already addressed that, so, okay. Member comments?
Do we want to talk about this 47 Taylor Street?
Oh, just extend the thing a year.
Right.
Oh, that's right, that's
oh
right.
my goodness. Just give them whatever they want. That's such a sad story.
Yeah, well, we still have to talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
We're a board.
I know.
That's right, I'm sorry, I just got that today.
What do we have to do for that, Janet? Just make a motion?
Yeah, just make a motion.
I make a motion to extend the permit for 47 Taylor Street 1 year.
Second.
Roll call, Kevin Baker,
Yes. Kevin Baker, yes.
Louise Nichols,
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin,
Mike Zeldin, yes.
Lisa Flanagan, yes. So we'll extend that to October 14th of 2021. Okay, thanks, Louise.
Yep.
All right. Are we done with correspondence? Okay. And any member comments?
Thanks for hanging in there and listening to the advisory team tonight. It was a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was good, but it is a lot. All right. Any public comments? Janet, anybody have their hands raised?
No hands raised.
All right. So long meeting tonight, guys. Everybody, thank you. Can I make a motion to adjourn? Have everybody make a motion to adjourn? Look at Mike. Or do it.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn a very fruitful and informative meeting.
Can I get a second, Louise. Take a roll call. Kevin? Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin Baker, yes.
Okay. Louise?
Louise Nichols, yes.
Mike Zeldin?
Mike Selden, yes.
And Lisa Flanagan, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. You're fabulous.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.